Chapter 146. Young Master, you should go and take a look. Young Mistress and Third Missy are on the opposite street. Third Missy is injured. Young Mistress asked me to come. Injured? What happened? Shi Fengju frowned and hurriedly said. Quickly lead the way. But, let's go. Brother Shi. Zhuang Weixian smiled and stepped forward. Brother Zhuang. Shi Fengju cupped his hands and apologized. Something came up and I'm afraid I'll have to miss the appointment today. I'll invite Brother Zhuang to a banquet another day. No worries. Zhuang Weixian smiled. I heard what this girl said just now. You can go back to your work. Sister-in-law's wife and Third Missy are more important. Shi Fengju nodded and ordered Luya to lead the way. The shopkeeper had already ordered someone to prepare a sedan, and was about to follow when Zhuang Weixian smiled and said, Forget it. Young Master sure has a carriage, and will send Third Missy directly to the clinic. The shopkeeper slapped his head and laughed at himself. I'm really stupid. He hurriedly sent Shi Fengju out. Shi Fengju had already heard from Luya what happened. He thanked the shopkeeper and went with her. Chang Huan hurriedly went to get the carriage. Young Master, are we still going upstairs? Gao Wang saw Zhuang Weixian looking outside with a smile on his face and asked. Young Master had originally made an appointment with Young Master Shi, who knew that this would happen. Zhuang Weixian said unhappily, Let's go. Why aren't we going up? He turned and left. Sang Wan, Shilian Xingji, and Kai Yun were waiting anxiously. Kai Yun and Xingji called out at the same time. Young Master. Young Mistress, look, Young Master is here. Xingji was overjoyed and smiled as she supported Sang Wan. It's really Big Brother. Luya is really capable. Shilian couldn't help but smile. Sang Wan was stunned and forced a smile. Wan Yang. Shi Fengju quickened his steps and hurriedly asked, Are you okay? Are you hurt? Sang Wan was slightly embarrassed. The one who was hurt was your sister, not me. Didn't Luya tell you? What would your sister think if you did that? I'm fine. It's third sister's foot that's injured. Sang Wan shook her head and said. At the same time, she glanced at Luya with slight condemnation. Luya innocently twitched the corner of her mouth. She thought in her heart, I have already said that it was Third Mrs. Foot that was injured. Eldest Young Master's reaction has nothing to do with me. Shi Fengju heaved a sigh of relief and then asked Shilian. Is it serious? Bear with it. Let's go to the clinic now. And thank you, eldest brother and sister-in-law. Shilian smiled gratefully. She didn't care about Shi Fengju's actions. Eldest brother was more concerned about sister-in-law. In her opinion, it was a matter of course. She had nothing to complain about. Shi Fengju smiled and said, Why are you here? He raised his eyebrows strangely and asked, Where's your carriage? His wife and sister inexplicably appeared here. Luya even went to the restaurant to borrow a sedan chair. This matter was too strange. Eldest Miss asked our eldest young mistress to accompany her shopping today, so we are here. Luya said and pointed to the Qiongfang pavilion nearby. We picked out the jewelry there. Is that so? Then where is eldest sister? Is she still in the Qiongfang pavilion? Shi Fengju suddenly realized, but then he became even more confused. Eldest Miss has already left. Luya said with a bit of anger. Left? Shi Fengju's face stiffened and suddenly became a bit unsightly. He seemed to have understood a little. Why was his sister still so? Yes, eldest miss. It's all my fault. Shilian saw that Luya was going to complain about Shi Yumei. She couldn't say that she was complaining, but the effect of telling the truth was the same as complaining. When Shi Yumei found out later, she was afraid that there would be another storm. Because of Big Sister's matter, Sang Wan's sister-in-law had already suffered quite a bit. Shilian did not want to cause any more trouble, but when she saw Sang Wan's non-committal look as if she wanted Luya to continue speaking, she quickly interrupted with a smile. It's all because of my carelessness. Big Sister still has to go shopping, so I'll have to trouble Big Sister to stay behind and accompany me. Today is really lucky. Who knew that I would meet eldest brother? I'm sorry for causing you trouble. After hearing this, Shi Fengju looked at Sang Wan. Sang Wan didn't say anything and just quietly lowered her eyes. How can sisters not cause trouble? Shi Fengju sighed in his heart and said, Eldest sister is really too much. Why is she in such a hurry to go shopping? She just left you here and didn't care. Let's go to the clinic first. Your leg needs to be seen by a doctor quickly. Shirlien nodded softly and said with a smile, Eldest brother, please don't blame eldest sister. It's all my fault. I was careless and ruined eldest sister's mood. I even implicated eldest sister. It's really, if you blame eldest sister again, I'll feel more and more guilty. Shifengju knew that she was afraid of causing trouble. She would rather be wrong than cause trouble. Suddenly, he remembered that this woman was also his sister with the same father. Compared to eldest sister, she was simply incomparable. Shifengju suddenly felt a little sad. Don't say that. Sangwon held her arm and said with a smile. Look at you, you're getting more and more emotional. It's more important to see a doctor first. Your eldest sister is right. Don't think too much. Shifengju smiled. Shirlien saw that the two of them wanted to let go of this matter and not pursue it any further. She let out a big sigh of relief and nodded with a smile. Immediately, Chang Huan drove the carriage over. The three of them got on and went straight to the clinic. Shirlien's leg injury was really not light. Her entire foot was weak. When she got on the carriage, Kai Yin and Xingji supported her on both sides. After a while they helped her get on. Shifengju frowned even deeper. Eldest sister was really too much this time. After seeing a doctor and taking medicine, the three of them went home together. Sangwon ordered people to carry a soft sedan chair to the second gate to pick up Shirlien. Then, she called for a sturdy servant to carry Shirlien into the room and lie down. She and Shifengju followed. After seeing that Shirlien was lying down and resting, she gave Kai Yun some instructions, and then went back. Sangwon returned to Ning Garden, followed by Shifengju. Sitting down in the warm room, Sangwon felt both physically and mentally exhausted. According to the doctor's diagnosis, Shirlien's finger was fractured. She needed to lie in bed for 2 months before she could walk normally. Before that, it was best for her not to go out and just lie down in the room. Shifengju didn't expect it to be so serious. Seeing that Sangwon didn't speak, he said with a smile, When we go back, send 2 more people to take care of third sister. Kai Yun is in charge of everything in her room. I'm afraid she won't be able to handle it. I know, Sangwon sighed. It's all my fault. If I didn't insist on dragging her along, it wouldn't be like this. Shifengju said. Don't blame yourself. Who would have thought? Next time, if eldest sister asks you to go out, just tell me and I'll go with you. Sangwon rolled her eyes at him. You went out early this morning. Even if I wanted to find you, I would have to be able to find you. Thinking about how she let Shiryu go so easily, Sangwon felt uncomfortable again. She angrily said, There will be a next time? Next time, even if mother scolds me, I won't go out with her. That's right. Today at Cheongfang Pavilion, your eldest sister took a fancy to a set of jewelry. It costs 80,000 taels. I picked out a bracelet with 18 beads for third sister. It's 800 taels. Later, shopkeeper's son will give you the bill. Shifengju said. Oh, and didn't pay much attention to it. He smiled and said, The things at Cheongfang Pavilion are pretty good. Why didn't you buy them? No need. Sangwon was a little annoyed. She thought to herself, after picking out a bracelet for third sister, your eldest sister's face was so cold that it was about to turn into ice. How could she resist me? When the time comes, who knows what kind of nice things she'll say? Wanyang, Shifengju sighed. After a while he bitterly smiled and said, Why do I feel that it's so difficult to deal with you guys? Wanyang, to be honest, I've never felt so sad in my life. This time, I'm really at my wit's end. Sangwon stared at him impolitely. You guys are too indulgent of your eldest sister. She's so indulgent that the whole world revolves around her. In any case, she's never wrong. It's always other people's fault. If she's unhappy, it's also other people's fault. She doesn't care about the consequences and takes it out on other people. Why are you glaring at me? That's what I'm saying. Let me tell you, Shifengju, no matter what I do, she still doesn't like me. In her eyes, I'm not as good as your cousin in any way. What do I have to worry about? I didn't say anything about you. Why are you being so magnanimous? Shi Fengju wasn't angry. Instead, he found it funny. He moved closer to her and said with a gentle smile, Wan Yang, if you're angry, take it out on me. We can talk about these things behind closed doors, but don't say anything in front of my mother and eldest sister. I don't want my mother to be sad. You've seen how my brother-in-law is. This marriage was facilitated by my mother. Although she didn't say anything, I know that she must be regretting it now. She feels guilty towards my eldest sister, so it's inevitable that she'll indulge her a little. I don't want to be harsh and make her sad. If you don't like her, just avoid her. Even if it's for my sake. Can't you at least suffer a little? In fact, Shi Fengju's father wasn't very willing to accept Shi Yumei's marriage. However, at that time, Wang was very satisfied with Ren Jixian. She was very satisfied with her son-in-law and in-law, so she insisted on going through with this marriage. There was also a subconscious reason that Wang wasn't satisfied with, so she insisted on fighting for her dignity. She couldn't decide her son's marriage, but she couldn't decide her daughter's marriage either. No matter what her husband said, she wouldn't change her mind. Shi Fengju's father had no choice but to reluctantly agree. Who would have thought that after 6 or 7 years, their daughter would end up bankrupt and bring her son-in-law back home to seek refuge? Shi Fengju knew that his mother must be upset. As her son, how could he hurt his mother's heart? Sangwon suddenly froze and couldn't say anything. If she hadn't met Shi Fengju today, she and Shi Lian would be in a very difficult situation. Now that she said these words in a fit of pique, and Shi Fengju was so good-tempered, how could she vent her anger? Sangwon looked away in a panic and said, Should I mention this to mother? I'm fine with it, but I'm worried about third younger sister. If Shi Yumei reversed black and white in front of Wang and added fuel to the fire, how could Shi Lian live? If that happened, she wouldn't be able to speak up for Shi Lian. One was the eldest sister-in-law, and the other was the youngest sister-in-law. The eldest sister-in-law was closer than the youngest sister-in-law, so no one would speak up for the youngest sister-in-law. Chapter 147. Shi Fengju saw that Sangwon thought this way and knew that this matter was over for her. He smiled and said, I will tell mother and eldest sister about this. Third sister, you have to take care of her. She has always been an honest person. I don't know if she has suffered any grievances. You have to take care of her. Don't worry, I will. Sangwon smiled and nodded. Shi Fengju saw her smile and also smiled. He wanted to apologize for what happened that day, but he swallowed the words that were about to come out of his mouth. It was better not to mention it. The more he talked about it, the worse it would be. It would be best if everyone vaguely forgot about it. Are you hungry? You have been busy for half a day and haven't eaten lunch yet. Shi Fengju said with a smile. Sangwon finally felt hungry. She looked at the clock on the table and said in surprise, Why is it so late? She hurriedly called for someone to prepare lunch. Luya hurriedly came back and said that it was ready, then went to order the table to set the table. Sangwon and Shi Fengju went over and asked with a smile, What a coincidence that Luya ran into you today. Did I delay your business? It's nothing. Shi Fengju smiled and said, I originally had an appointment with young Master Zhuang at the delicacies restaurant to discuss some matters. It's the same another day. Young Master Zhuang? Sangwon asked with a smile. Is he Madame Zhuang's son? Shi Fengju said with a smile. We grew up together. Speaking of which, you haven't seen him yet. I will take you to meet him another day. Sangwon felt that these words were intimate and did not respond. Shi Fengju smiled and did not mention it again. After a hurried meal, Shi Fengju went to Banana Courtyard to find Shi Yumei. Shi Yumei heard the servant girl report that he had arrived, and hurriedly went out to greet him. She clapped her hands and said with a smile, How rare. What wind blew you here? Can I come to see big sister? Shi Fengju smiled and walked into the house with her. Of course I welcome you to visit me. Shi Yumei smiled and said, I just don't know if you're here to condemn me. Condemn? Shi Fengju calmly sat down and laughed in spite of himself. Big sister, what are you talking about? Shi Yumei ordered the maidservants to serve tea. She pinched her handkerchief and sneered. Come on, you know your sister doesn't like to beat around the bush. Why do you have to pretend? Don't you know what I mean? Or is it because you've lived with someone for too long that you've also picked up this bad habit? Big sister, can't we talk nicely? Shifengju laughed. All right. I won't talk about it. Shiyume shook her hands and said indignantly, she's the rightful mistress of the house. What am I? If I can't afford to offend her, I'll hide. I'll never provoke her again. Is that okay? There's no need to be so distant when we're family. Shifengju smiled and said, I actually hope that big sister can talk to Wanyang more when you're free. After some time, big sister will like her. Enough. I know that you can't see anyone else in your eyes right now. Second brother, just take it as your sister being too talkative. Fangzi has done so much for you. You can't forget about her. Big sister. Shifengju's voice subconsciously became a little unnatural, and he said faintly, Fangzi has already married into the family. How have I wronged her? As long as she's obedient, the Shi family won't mistreat her. Big sister, did you go shopping with Wanyang and third sister today? Shiyume could only suppress the words she wanted to say. She glared at Shifengju and thought to herself, I knew you're here for this. She then said, that's right. I can't tell usually, but your wife and third sister seem to get along quite well. I didn't want to disturb them, so I left first. Did someone complain to you that I left them alone? Shiyume's eyes widened in shock. She sat up straight and glared at Shifengju. Why are you at home at this time? Did she specially send someone to call you back from the business because of this? What are you thinking? Shifengju said faintly. I just happened to pass by and saw Wanyang and third sister. So I sent third sister to the medical hall, and came back later. After Shifengju finished speaking, he glanced at Shiyume and lowered his head to drink his tea. Shiyume's expression turned slightly sluggish. She then said disapprovingly, wasn't it just a touch from the carriage? Why did you have to go to the medical hall? Isn't third sister a little too delicate? Big sister, you don't know? Shifengju was surprised. He nodded and sighed. I think you really don't know. Third sister's foot is fractured. It's not just a touch. It's quite serious. The doctor said that she needs to recuperate for 2 months before she can recover. Now she's lying on the bed and can't even walk. Shiyume's expression changed slightly. Is it really that serious? I clearly saw that she was lightly pressed by the carriage's wheels. I didn't see anything wrong with her. The carriage is so heavy, and third sister is a girl. How could she withstand that? Shifengju said. Fortunately, the doctor said that she will be fine as long as she takes good care of her foot for 2 months and applies medicine on time. She won't be crippled. Otherwise, third sister's life will be ruined. Shiyume originally felt a little guilty, but when she heard Shifengju's words, it seemed like he was blaming her. She said angrily, it's all my fault. It's all my fault. Is this okay? It's fine if she's fine. If she's crippled, I'll compensate her. Big sister. Hearing his big sister say such childish words, Shifengju didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He said, that's not what I meant. Then what did you mean? Shiyume coldly snorted. If that's not what you meant, then why did you come here to tell me? Is it wrong to tell you? Shifengju was also a little annoyed. He stared at Shiyume and said, Big sister, think about it yourself. Are you not in the wrong in this matter? If you were the one who was injured, and third sister left like this, what would you think? How dare you? Shiyume was so angry that she shouted, but then she was at a loss for words. Shifengju leisurely stared at her and said, so big sister also knows about it. Third sister is our sister after all. If something really happened to her because of this, how can big sister be at ease for the rest of her life? Third sister has always been good-natured. I don't remember when she offended big sister. Why does big sister dislike her? I thought I understood big sister, but now I understand that it's not like that at all. Big sister, I don't understand what you want to do. I only came here today to tell big sister about third sister's situation. Big sister, if you have time, please go and see her. Don't drag this matter onto third sister again. Third sister didn't say anything, and she didn't make up anything or have any grievances. Big sister, don't think too much about it. After Shi Fengju finished speaking, he got up and left Banana Courtyard. Shi Yumei opened her mouth and moved her lips, but she couldn't say a single word. How would I know that she was so delicate? Am I that vicious? Shi Yumei muttered. She felt an indescribable grievance in her heart. Big cousin. Gu Fengzi leisurely came out from behind the partition. She supported Shi Yumei and gently comforted her. Don't say that. Big cousin, you have a straightforward personality. How can you be so vicious? This was just an accident. Big cousin, how can you take the blame for it? Big cousin didn't mean it that way. He just wanted to tell you to be at ease. You were just saying to me that you didn't know if third sister was injured. Now that you know, you should be at ease. At that time, you had something to do. Wasn't third cousin accompanied by big sister? It has nothing to do with you. Besides, who knows if anything happened after you left? Maybe it was because of something else that caused third cousin to get hurt? Big sister is also too much. If she really cares about third sister, she should have sent her to see a doctor as soon as possible. With so many delays, even if she was fine, something would have happened. Shi Yumei felt slightly better after hearing that. She sneered slightly and said, "See a doctor as soon as possible?" It wasn't easy for her to find such a good opportunity to find fault with me. How can I not seize it? I think she was the one who delayed third sister's treatment. I'm curious. How can it be so coincidental to meet Fengju? The more Shi Yumei thought about it, the angrier she became. She was sure that Sangwon was scheming and had plotted against her. Gu Fengzi was naturally overjoyed, but she quickly explained on behalf of Sangwon. Cousin Yumei, please don't say that. Big sister hasn't gone out much, so how could she have experienced such a thing? It's possible to say that it was negligence, but if it was intentional. Cousin Yumei, big sister isn't such a person. Don't misunderstand her. Why don't I accompany Cousin Yumei to Ning Garden and explain this matter to big sister? I'm not going. Shi Yumei said angrily. You want me to give in to her? Who does she think she is? Isn't she capable enough to get Fengju to stand up for her and teach me a lesson? If I send myself to her door to be humiliated, she can dream on. Gu Fengzi quickly said. If you don't want to go, then don't go. Cousin Yumei, don't be angry. It's not worth it to hurt your body. Forget it, I think big cousin will tell big sister. Why don't we go see third cousin tomorrow? Cousin Yumei, third cousin Yumei is one of us after all. Shi Yumei thought of the intimacy that Shi Lian and Sangwon had inadvertently revealed, as well as the tension and alienation that Shi Lian had towards her at all times. She became even angrier. That traitor isn't a good person either. Serves her right to be taught a lesson. Her heart was elated for a moment, and the guilt she felt towards Shi Lian's injury disappeared without a trace. Instead, it was replaced by hope. It's better to go. Gu Fengzi tried to persuade her again and finally said softly. Not for anything else, but just to show Sister Sangwon that you should go. Otherwise, to put it bluntly, Cousin Fengzi will be the bad guy. Shi Yumei seemed to have woken up from a dream, and quickly nodded in agreement. You're right. If that's the case, then I have to go. That's right. Shi Yumei couldn't help but sigh. She held Gu Fengzi's hand and said, Fengzi, you're the one who really cares about me. I'm now looking forward to your mourning period and consummating your marriage with Fengju. When that time comes, let's see what tricks that vixen has up her sleeves. Gu Fengzi's heart was filled with joy. She shyly lowered her eyes and hugged Shi Yumei's arm as she acted coquettishly. Shi Yumei giggled and couldn't help but tease her for a while before her mood improved. After Shi Fengju left Ning Garden, Mama Li went up to Sangwon with a smile and said, Old slave, send someone to the study room in the afternoon to bring back the clothes that young master packed 2 days ago. Sangwon was startled at first, but she soon understood what she meant. She forced a smile and said, I don't think that's necessary. Actually, it's good to leave some clothes there. It'll be convenient for young master to change his clothes whenever he wants. There's more here anyway. There's no need to go through so much trouble. Chapter 148. How is this troublesome? Mama Li said with a smile. Eldest young master has taken the initiative to come back, so young mistress, shouldn't you also express your opinion? Old slave knows that you're thin-skinned, so you might not say what you're thinking. Once you bring eldest young master's clothes back, eldest young master will naturally understand what you mean. Sangwon was speechless. How was this her idea again? But she couldn't tell Mama Lee. You've misunderstood. Actually, this really wasn't my idea. Shi Fengju didn't hold any grudges, and helped her out of the predicament today. His expression was so concerned that if Sangwon brought up the past again, she would appear to be petty. She was even a little absent-minded, as if he really cared about her. She also understood that Shi Yumei was really capricious and overbearing to the extreme. She didn't care about the situation or the person she was dealing with. She only cared about her own mood. If she were to seriously compete with this kind of person, she would really be giving herself a hard time. Mama Lee saw that Sangwon didn't say anything, so she decisively made her own decision. Old slave will immediately pass down the order. Haha, seeing that you and the first young master have reconciled. This old servant feels as if a huge rock has been removed from my heart. I'm relieved. Although Xingji, Luya, and the other maidservants didn't say so, they all had faint smiles on their faces to express their agreement. Sangwon couldn't help but laugh a little. She thought that only the two of them knew about the turbulent undercurrent between her and Shi Fengju. Who would have thought that they also felt it? In fact, even if Mama Lee didn't ask someone to go to the study to get the clothes, Shi Fengju had already planned to move back tonight. Sangwon was no longer angry, so why would he still want to be alone in the study? Although he couldn't do anything when he came back, at least there would be someone to talk to, right? Of course, when he heard that Ning Garden had sent someone to collect the clothes, he was even happier. The next day, when Sangwon went to Wang's place to greet her, Wang asked about Shi Lian. I heard that she was hit by a carriage yesterday? What's going on? Shi Yumei was also present at the scene. She raised her eyes and glanced at Sangwon. Sangwon was a little surprised. She thought that Shi Yumei had already told on her, and was waiting for Wang to punish her. Why did Wang seem to be unaware? Sangwon knew that her mother-in-law was not the kind of person who knew the truth and deliberately tricked her. In the blink of an eye, Sangwon didn't see it clearly. I don't know why, but I was crushed by the wheels of the carriage. The doctor said that she had to rest in bed for 2 months. I'm afraid that third younger sister won't be able to come and pay respects to mother during this time. Speaking of which, this daughter-in-law didn't take good care of third younger sister. Wang frowned slightly. It doesn't matter whether she comes to pay respects or not. Let her rest well. Take care of her. You don't have to blame yourself. I think this matter has nothing to do with you. She's already an adult. How could she not know how to take care of herself? She usually looks honest and steady, but I didn't expect her to be a careless person. Sangwon smiled and thanked Wang. She didn't say anything else. She couldn't help but sigh inwardly. Truly, the one who gave birth to the child would be the one who would feel the heartache. If it was Shi Yumei who was injured, Wang would have already brought her over to teach her a lesson. Why would she wait until now? As for Shi Yumei overbearingly driving the carriage away, Wang didn't say a word about it. In Fuchu Pavilion, Shi Lian didn't care at all. She was lying on the bed and playing with a net to relieve her boredom. From time to time, she would chat with Kai Yun. In any case, the doctor said that her legs wouldn't be crippled, so it was fine. She was happy to be able to slack off openly and feel more comfortable than usual. Hee, third younger cousin is so carefree. You really know how to have fun. Unexpectedly, Gu Fangzi and Shi Yumei entered the room hand in hand. Shi Lian and Kai Yun didn't notice them until they entered the room. Eldest miss, younger cousin. Kai Yun was originally sitting on the edge of the bed with Shi Lian, laughing and discussing how to match the net in her hands. The master and servant were happily chatting, but upon seeing them, Kai Yun was startled and hurriedly got up to greet them. Eldest sister. Older cousin. Shi Lian also quickly sat up and bowed with a smile. Shi Yumei saw that Shi Lian was in good condition and didn't look miserable at all. After hearing Gu Fangzi's words, she felt even more apologetic. On the contrary, she suspected that Shi Lian's foot injury was faked. She couldn't help but stare at her a few times. Third younger cousin, don't be so polite. Be careful not to move the wound. Gu Fangzi smiled and sat down on the edge of the bed. She held Shirlian's hand and patted it gently. Seeing Yume standing aside, Kaiyun hurriedly moved a chair for her to sit down and hurriedly went out to pour tea. Gu Fengzi looked at Shirlian and smiled at Yume. Younger cousin's complexion is quite good. It seems that you have rested well and are in a good mood. Yume smiled and couldn't help but speak with sarcasm. Isn't that so? I thought that she must be sad because she was wronged and rushed over to comfort her. It seems that third younger sister knows how to take care of herself. I thought too much. Shirlian's face stiffened. She was injured for no reason. How could she say that she didn't feel wronged in her heart? But she knew that even if she felt wronged, what could she do? You want big sister to apologize. She didn't even dare to think about it. She was already very grateful to eldest brother and sister-in-law for taking care of her. Who would have thought that instead of seeing her sad, eldest sister would be the one to pick on her? Shirlian knew that if she were to really lie down with messy hair, a gloomy expression, tear stains on her face, and slight frowns between her brows, eldest sister would still be angry and think that she was doing it on purpose for her to see. In short, it was her fault no matter what. Shirlian couldn't help but feel bitter in her heart. But she had always been able to endure it. She pretended that she didn't hear Yume's unspoken words and smiled embarrassedly. Actually, younger sister likes to be quiet and doesn't like to move, so I don't think it's a big deal. Since eldest sister and cousin came to see me, younger sister can only be grateful. Look at this little mouth. You're becoming more and more eloquent. Gu Fengzi smiled and pretended to be intimate with her. She gently pinched her cheek and joked. Everyone says that third cousin is too honest and doesn't like to talk, but I think that you're a clever one. Yume nodded in annoyance and said, Fengzi, you're right. This younger sister of ours is really unexpected. Shirlian smiled innocently and said, eldest sister and cousin are praising me so much. It makes me feel embarrassed. She didn't know if she was really stupid or just pretending to be stupid. Yume rolled her eyes and didn't say anything, while Gu Fengzi pursed her lips and smiled. Kaiyun came to serve tea, and Shirlian politely declined. Yume and Gu Fengzi each took a cup. When the lid was lifted, the fragrance of the tea rose in spirals, and the light tea fragrance spread in the air. Gu Fengzi took a light breath and lowered her head to take a sip. She smiled and praised. This is top-notch Longjing tea before the rain. Did eldest sister give it to you? I remember that eldest cousin loves to drink this tea. Ning Garden has a lot of it every year. Of course, it was given to her by Sangwon. Otherwise, who would think of her? The tea leaves that were sent by the public house were brought back by the lady who bought them. It was definitely not tea for a young miss to drink. Seeing Yume's expression change slightly, Shirlian felt hatred in her heart. She knew that she had offended this narrow-minded cousin of hers by being close to her sister-in-law. She was deliberately trying to sow discord and frame her. How could eldest sister not be angry when she heard that her sister-in-law gave her eldest brother's favorite tea leaves? Yume sneered and said, your sister-in-law really dotes on you. Even the tea leaves were specially sent to you. What's wrong? Didn't the public house set a rule for you on time? Kaiyun heard that this was an opportunity for her to complain. She moved her lips and was about to say something, but Shirlian secretly stared at her, and she shut her mouth. Of course there is a rule. It is sent on time every month and has never been late. Shirlian hurriedly said with a smile. It's just that the doctor said that you have to drink some light tea these days. Although pu'er tea is good for the stomach, it's not suitable to drink at this time. That's why eldest sister sent some Longjing tea over yesterday. I know that eldest brother likes to drink this. I originally refused, but eldest sister said that it was eldest brother's order, and told me to accept it. Only then did I accept it. Today is the first time I've soaked it. Yume didn't say anything, but Gu Fengzi said with a smile, so that's how it is. Eldest brother usually doesn't care about these things, but he specially asked eldest sister to send you tea leaves. It seems that younger cousin has profited from a disaster this time. After saying that, she gently held Shirlian's hand and intimately giggled. Shirlian was furious. She thought, didn't eldest brother send you a lot of things in the past? Even a piece of dessert or a fresh fruit would be for you. Isn't it too much to sow discord in front of eldest sister today? Shirlian opened her eyes in surprise and said with a smile, "Is that so? I feel that eldest brother has always been meticulous. But older cousin is right. I really profited from a disaster this time. In the past, eldest brother has never sent me tea leaves. He has never even sent me fruits or desserts. You don't know how much I liked it yesterday. Also, eldest sister and older cousin rarely came to visit me, so I was very happy." Gu Fengzi couldn't help but think of all the good things that Shi Fengjiu had done for her in the past. She felt slightly embarrassed and couldn't help but glance at Shi Yumei. She saw that Shi Yumei was also subconsciously glancing at her. It was obvious that she was also thinking of the past. Gu Fengzi couldn't help but feel resentful. She thought, "You're just an unfavored concubine's daughter. If it wasn't for that slut Sangwon backing you up, you wouldn't dare to speak to me like this. Listen to what younger cousin is saying. If we come often, I'm afraid you'll find it troublesome." Gu Fengzi giggled again. "How could that be? We're all sisters of the same family." Shirlian smiled bashfully. As Ri Zhang was speaking, Sangwon coincidentally arrived. When Sangwon heard that Shi Yumei and Gu Fengzi were here, she subconsciously wanted to avoid them. However, the maidservants of Fuchu Pavilion had already seen her. Sangwon could only enter with a smile. Eldest sister-in-law. Older sister. Shirlian secretly let out a sigh of relief. Gu Fengzi hurriedly stood up and clasped her hands in front of her. She slightly curtsied toward Sangwon. Only Shi Yumei sat still and drank her tea. Eldest sister and younger sister are both here. Sangwon smiled and walked forward. The maidservant hurriedly brought a chair over. "What? Are you so surprised to see us? We're all heartless and shouldn't have come. We can't compare to sister-in-law. We're sincerely concerned about third sister." Shi Yumei couldn't open her mouth to speak to Sangwon. Every time she opened her mouth, it would either be sarcastic or sarcastic. Chapter 149. Sangwon pretended not to hear her, and sat on the bed where Gu Fengzi previously sat. She smiled and asked Shirlian, "Your eldest brother asked me to come and see you. How are you? Do you feel better? Is the medicine you used right? Is your wound infected? Did you sleep well last night? Does it hurt?" Shi Yumei was angry that Shi Guang ignored her. She glared at Shi Guang and wanted to say something, but she couldn't. She couldn't repeat what she said just now and force Shi Guang to hear it. Gu Fengzi stood at the side with her head lowered. She looked timid as if she was not involved in the matter. Deep down, she could not wait for Shi Yumei and Sangwon to start a fight. Shirlian's eyelids twitched slightly. She was secretly surprised, but she naturally wouldn't expose Sangwon. Sangwon pretended not to hear, so she could only pretend not to hear. She smiled and answered Sangwon's questions one by one, expressing her gratitude to her eldest brother and sister-in-law. "I'm relieved that third sister is fine. I can explain to your mother-in-law and your eldest brother later." Sangwon finally finished asking and sighed softly. She recovered from her shock and smiled apologetically at Shi Yumei. "What did eldest sister say just now? I'm really sorry, I didn't hear clearly." "Umph," Shi Yumei sneered. "You know clearly whether you didn't hear clearly or not." Sangwon only smiled and didn't say anything. Shi Yumei felt even more suffocated and sneered. "You're the mistress of the household after all. You're different. It's fine if you didn't hear clearly. I'm just a lowly person, so why would young mistress sure care about me?" Sangwon smiled. "I've always been obedient to eldest sister. Eldest sister, you've wronged me. Eldest sister often taught Wan Yang to serve her husband wholeheartedly and treat him as her sky. Today, her husband gave her a lot of instructions. Wan Yang was afraid that she would forget something and let her husband down, so she hurriedly told her third younger sister. Eldest sister came earlier than me, so it can be seen that she also cares about third sister. I also understand eldest sister's feelings. Who would have thought that he couldn't multitask and didn't hear eldest sister's words clearly? We're all doing this for the good of third sister. I'm sure eldest sister won't blame me, right?" When Gu Fengzi heard her mention Shi Fengjiu, she couldn't help but feel sour and jealous. She couldn't help but raise her eyes to glance at her. Shi Yumei didn't expect her to say such a thing. She felt aggrieved, and her face turned red and white. She wanted to retort back, but unfortunately, she found that she had nothing to say. "Oh right, big sister." Sangwon smiled and said, "Since I met eldest sister here, I'll be lazy and tell eldest sister about this matter. It'll save me the trouble of sending someone over." Husband said that since it's almost the new year, eldest sister and brother-in-law's expenses must be high. Next month's monthly allowance will be given in advance. I'll prepare the money and have someone send it over in the afternoon. She then stood up and smiled. Eldest sister and younger sister should accompany third sister more when you have time. I still have things to do, so I'll be leaving first. Third sister, if you need anything, just ask the servant to tell me. Don't be polite. This is what mother-in-law and your eldest brother specially told me. Thank you, eldest sister. Please thank mother and eldest brother for me. When I'm better, I'll pay my respects to them. Shirley-Ann hurriedly said with a smile. However, she was secretly complaining in her heart. Eldest sister, don't leave. You should at least stay and help me. If you leave, how am I going to deal with it? Third sister, there's no need to be polite. Rest well. I'll talk to mother-in-law and husband. Sangwon smiled and nodded slightly to Shirley-Ann and Gu Fengzi to say goodbye. Then she left with the servant. Shirley-An's face was very ugly. She was sullen and angry. She also stood up with a gloomy face and called Gu Fengzi to go with her. She thought, who do you think you are? What right do you have to order me around? You tell me to stay, so I'll stay. Do I have to listen to you? Shirley-Ann saw them leave and felt relieved. She hurriedly ordered Kai Yin to send them out, and let out a long sigh of relief. A few days later, Sangwon came back from the meeting hall. Mama Lee welcomed her into the warm room with a smile. She pointed to the things on the Kong and said with a smile, "Young mistress, take a look. Eldest young master asked someone to send these back especially for you." When Sangwon came in, she saw a pile of neatly folded dresses and a vermilion jewelry box that was about a foot long. Just as she was about to ask about it, she smiled and said, "Aren't there enough clothes for the rest of the year? Young master, you've spent a lot of money again." Eldest young master is considerate. Young mistress, please accept it. Eldest young master said that these were specially made for the new year. They are all made from newly obtained materials. Young mistress, please take a look. As Mama Lee said this, she ordered Lu Ya Xingji and the others to unfold the clothes one by one for Sangwon to look at. There was an orange-red soft satin gown with chrysanthemum patterns, and a light-colored pleated skirt. There was a yellow peony and lotus-patterned silk jacket with a moon-white floral pattern. There was a bright red butterfly gown with butterflies fluttering in the wind. There was also a colorful hibiscus pattern embroidered with green fields. There was also a lynx skin cloak and a bright red feather cloak. Lu Ya Xingji and the others held up the clothes and showed them to Sangwon. When they moved their hands, they were dazzling and brilliant. It was extremely dazzling and breathtaking. Everyone laughed and praised. They all said that only someone like young mistress was worthy of such rich colors and materials. They also laughed and joked that no one could surpass young mistress in eldest young master's heart. They had never seen eldest young master take the initiative to make clothes for others. When Sangwon heard this, she couldn't help but smile. Sometimes, Shifengji was really good to her. He was so good to her that she didn't have the ability to distinguish between what was real and what was fake. If it wasn't for the nightmarish past in her previous life, she thought that she would have been unable to extricate herself from his good intentions. However, that nightmare was like a thorn that pierced deeply into her heart. When she was happy, when she felt a little bit of happiness, it would move a little, reminding her of it. Sangwon smiled and ordered Luya and the others to put it away. Her gaze fell on the box inlaid with jade. Mama Lee took it and opened it. She smiled and said, "Just by looking at the exquisite workmanship of this box, the things inside must be of high quality. Young mistress, look. Oh, this jewelry is really beautiful. These beads and jadeite, they're really well made." Mama Lee was amazed and praised. She took out a jadeite hairpin inlaid with butterflies and flowers. The butterflies' antennae were still trembling, and the jadeite wings inlaid with beads seemed to be gently flapping and flying. It was very lively. She handed it to Sangwon with both hands and said with a smile, "Young mistress, look. This set of jadeite goes well with these bright clothes." Eldest young master's taste is really good. Luya and Xingji looked at each other and revealed a look of surprise. This set of jewelry was the set of Lantian pearl that they saw at Xiongfang Pavilion a few days ago. 120,000 taels. How could it not be beautiful? Luya muttered in her heart, but she was also very happy for Sangwon. Sangwon smiled as she took the hairpin. It felt heavy in her hands. The angle changed and the lighting changed. The jadeite's color changed and became more gorgeous. It was too beautiful to be imagined. Young mistress, the old slave will put it on for you. Mama Lee said with a smile. Put it away first. Sangwon put it back and said with a smile. I can tell that it's a good thing with one look. I'll just wear it during the new year. That's good too. Otherwise, young mistress's hair will have to be combed again. In any case, young mistress has a good life. You'll look good wearing anything. Mama Lee smiled and ordered Luya and Xingji to put the jewelry away. Sangwon smiled and thought to herself, who knows what Shi Yumei would say if she were to see me wearing this set of things. She didn't want to listen to that gossip. If Shi Fengju wasn't present, she definitely wouldn't wear it. Mama Lee was still praising Shi Fengju and couldn't help but persuade Sangwon to treat him better and show more concern. Sangwon almost couldn't handle it. Suddenly, she thought of something and found an opportunity to softly change the topic. She sent everyone away with her eyes and said, I have something to ask Mama. Does Mama have anything else to do now? Young mistress, if you have any instructions, please don't hesitate to ask. Old slave is listening. Mama Lee hurriedly straightened her body and said with a smile. She listened attentively and finally stopped talking. Sangwon thought for a while and said carefully, Yesterday, I vaguely heard that Xingji's mother wanted to ask for grace to let her go out to get married. Is this true? Mama Lee's expression changed slightly, and she suddenly became nervous. She hurriedly said with a smile. To be honest with young mistress, Xingji's mother, Yang Quan's family, does have this idea. However, Xingji is only 17 this year, and can still serve young mistress for 2 to 3 years. Old slave sees that she is steady in her work. With her around, young mistress will have an arm. This isn't a big deal. Old slave can go back and tell Yang Quan's family to let her wait for a while. The maidservants of large families were usually released to get married at the age of 20, or even 22 or 23. The Yang family was relying on their dignity for 2 to 3 lifetimes to ask for grace for their daughter. I don't have any intention of stopping her, Sangwon said with a smile. This matter still depends on Xingji herself. If she wants to go out, then I will allow it. She isn't young anymore. It's not good to force her to stay. It's just that once she leaves, I will have to trouble Mama to quickly find a reliable maidservant to come in and train her. Not too long ago, Sangwon had just helped Jita escape from Ren Jixian's evil clutches. If Jita wanted to leave and get married in just a month or 2, it could be seen that she was still an ungrateful person who only cared about her own safety. Even if Sangwon were to stay, it would not be of much use. Instead, it would only cause a knot in Sangwon's heart. Thus, it would be better to let Jita go and still maintain their relationship as master and servant. Moreover, Sangwon faintly suspected that although this matter was brought up by Xingji's parents, who knew if it wasn't Xingji who secretly told them to quickly leave this place. If that was the case, then all the more she couldn't let her stay. Mama Lee listened for a long time and didn't say anything. In the end, she nodded and said with a smile, Young mistress is really benevolent. Actually, the Yang family has the intention to marry the Jin housekeeper. The person they fancy is the Jin housekeeper's youngest son. The two families have already discussed it in private. Since they are both in the Fu, this marriage can be settled first. There's really no need to rush to get married at this time. Young mistress Xingji has served in Ning Garden for many years and knows everything. If another person like this comes, who knows when she will be able to get used to it? When the time comes, young mistress won't be able to use her well, and it won't be beautiful. Chapter 150. On this matter, Sangwon was rather stubborn. She shook her head and smiled. I've never been willing to force others. I think this matter should be left to Xingji's own wishes. Mama, go and ask her. Just tell her that I told her not to have any misgivings, and that she can say whatever she wants. She has served Ning Garden wholeheartedly for so many years, so it's only right for her to ask for such a favor. Mama Lee couldn't persuade her any further, and could only agree. Her heart was filled with regret. It could be said that she had watched Xingji grow up. Although the girl was a bit too rational, and only cared for her own safety, she was very reliable. As long as she agreed, she wouldn't play any tricks in front of others or behind others' backs. She was very reassuring. If she were to leave, Hong Yi would not be able to take charge. Just her and Luya alone would not be enough. If they were to train another little girl, it would depend on fate and luck. In fact, Yang Quan's family had wanted to come to Ning Garden to ask for a favor a few days ago. However, she had intentionally stopped them when she found out. Yang Quan's family was tactful and didn't want to disrespect her, so they stopped the matter. After a few days without any news, Mama Lee thought that she had really given up and was relieved. Who knew that this old servant would be so sly, and let Sangwon hear about it without saying anything? Sangwon just had to ask her about it. Even if Xingji is willing to go, the old slave will have to wait until after the new year. In March or April, there won't be so many things to do in the estate. That would be just right. What does young mistress think? Mama Lee smiled. He was in a hurry to find 2 or 3 suitable maidservants, and let Jita take care of them for the time being. After that, he would slowly train them and choose the best one to focus on. It would be better for him to have a few months to rest. More importantly, by that time, the results of the Sang family's second uncle should be out. Bodhisattva would bless him with a grand scholar or something. That way, the young mistress would have another layer of support to rely on, and no one would dare to cause trouble in the small garden. Sangwon also knew that it was almost the new year, and there were many things waiting to be done. It was not a good time to change the personnel, so she nodded with a smile and said, "Nanny is very thoughtful. Then please explain it to Xingji." "Yes, ma'am." Mama Lee secretly shook her head. You're really too cautious." No matter what, she was just a little girl. As for explaining things to her, who knew that Xingji's reaction was simply too pleasing to Mama Lee's liking? Before Mama Lee could finish her words, Xingji's expression changed slightly and she hurriedly said, "Mama, this is this servant's mother's decision. This servant doesn't want to go out yet. This servant still wants to serve young mistress for a few more years." Mama Lee was stunned and couldn't speak for a moment. The first thought that came to her mind was, could this girl have been possessed by a demon? If it was Hong Yi or some other servant who said this, Mama Lee would believe it. But Xingji, she really didn't believe it. This girl had never liked to meddle in other people's business. Now that such a good opportunity had been placed in front of her, she actually rejected it? Let me finish speaking first. Mama Lee pondered for a moment, and decided not to push the boat along with the current. It was better to explain the young mistress's intentions clearly, lest she let her good intentions down in the future. Mama Lee smiled and said, "Since young mistress asked me to come and ask you, she must be telling you this sincerely. She's not playing with you. You don't need to have any misgivings. If you really want to go out, just nod your head. Don't worry, young mistress isn't someone who deliberately tries to sound you out. You've always been meticulous, so don't think too much." Xingji's heart darkened slightly. She didn't think that Mama Lee didn't trust her to this extent. Thinking about it, it was no wonder. She had always done her duty and didn't say anything else. The first thing she would think about was whether it was harmful to her. If she felt that it was harmful, she definitely wouldn't do it. The reason why Mama Lee kept her around was because she saw another advantage in her, which was that she did her duty and was serious about what she should do. Of course, she relied on this to establish herself. "Mama, these are truly this servant's heartfelt words. This servant still wants to serve young mistress for a few more years, and doesn't want to go out. Mama, please tell young mistress this," Xingji said decisively. Mama Lee's expression was calm, but she still had some doubts in her heart. Thinking about it, she smiled and said, "If you can think this way, then young mistress's love for you is not in vain. However, do your parents also have the same intentions?" Speaking of her parents, Xingji immediately understood. It must be because of that marriage again. Her face slightly reddened. The Jean housekeeper was a good person, and his son's reputation wasn't bad. Xingji had occasionally seen him in the past, so she didn't reject this marriage. However, she didn't want to get married so soon. My parents will listen to my opinion. Mama, don't worry, Xingji hurriedly said. Hearing her say this, Mama Li didn't try to persuade her anymore. Her face finally had a few more smiles as she nodded and said, "This is also good. You can go out after 3 or 4 years. Young mistress definitely won't treat you unfairly. Actually, I also want you to stay. After all, you've served in this courtyard for so many years and are familiar with everything." On the other hand, young mistress only knows how to think for you and doesn't take herself seriously. How about this? Why don't you personally go and tell young mistress? Xingji knew that Mama Li intentionally wanted her to show her loyalty in front of Sangwon to please her. She smiled and agreed, then went over with Mama Li. Mama Li replied and then left, leaving Xingji alone to talk with Sangwon. Without waiting for Sangwon to ask, Xingji had already knelt down and kowtowed with tears in her eyes. "Young mistress, this servant sincerely wants to stay and serve young mistress. I beg young mistress to let this servant stay. You have given this servant a new lease of life. This servant should serve you for a lifetime. How can this servant dare to leave with such selfish intentions? Young mistress, please grant my wish." After that incident, Xingji didn't change much compared to before. She was still so quiet. Sangwon even thought that she had forgotten. Naturally, she wouldn't deliberately remind her to repay her. In any case, when she helped her, it was more out of sympathy. Sangwon didn't expect her to shed tears of gratitude. Now that she heard Xingji's words, Sangwon felt a little apologetic. "Quickly get up and talk." Sangwon raised her hand and quickly smiled. "That incident wasn't so serious. I shouldn't restrain you. If you want to leave, I won't stop you. If you want to stay, it's naturally better." "This servant will stay." Xingji kowtowed and thanked her. She then got up and said, "This servant wants to stay and help young mistress." This servant said that from then on, this servant's life is young mistress's. This servant has never forgotten. What's the point? Sangwon couldn't help but sigh. She couldn't help but tease. "Hearing you say this, it's as if I'm in a dragon's den or a tiger's den." "Young mistress," Xingji said seriously, "this servant thinks so." Sangwon's expression couldn't help but change slightly. She was stunned for a moment. Xingji looked up and stared at her. She said calmly, "This servant has long wanted to say something to young mistress. It's just that this servant couldn't find the right time to say it. Young mistress, you probably didn't forget that Miss Gu will be removing her clothes in the 2nd month after the new year. Miss Gu's methods," Xingji paused and continued. "This servant has seen too much. Now there's eldest Missy in the residence. Her temper is even more. Young mistress, this servant isn't boasting. This servant will be of some use to you if I stay by your side at this time." Sangwon couldn't help but shiver. Her expression changed slightly. "It's been hard on you." Sangwon sighed softly. "I didn't expect that you're doing this for me." She then joked, "You're also silly. Since you know it in your heart, you should think of a way to avoid it. Why get involved in this muddy water?" Xingji said, "Although this servant isn't some noble person, this servant knows the principle of repaying kindness. Young mistress, you can trust this servant in the future. No matter what, you can leave it to this servant to do." This sentence was more trustworthy than any oath. Sangwon believed that as long as this was said by Xingji, there was no need to doubt it. "Good. With your words, it can't be better." Sangwon finally smiled and nodded. "Young mistress believes in this servant. This servant is also relieved." Xingji also let out a sigh of relief. The two of them looked at each other and smiled. In the blink of an eye, it was the 12th month. The shopkeepers and workers in the business had all been arranged properly. Those who were supposed to go home for the holidays had already set off. All the matters that were left behind had been arranged neatly. All the accounts that needed to be sorted out had also been sorted out. The remaining matters would be settled in the 1st month of the next year. As usual, this month was the most leisurely month for Shifengju. He didn't have to go to the business every day and stayed in the residence to rest. It was rare for him to have a good rest for a few days in a year. Wang felt sorry for her son and told him to skip the morning greetings so that he could have a good rest. She even skipped Sangwon's greetings and only told her to serve her husband well. Shi Fengju naturally didn't skip the morning greetings, but he went later than usual. Often after breakfast, the couple would go together and sit and chat with Wang for a while. With her children by her side, Wang was naturally in a good mood. On this day, the two of them had just returned to Ning Garden from Wang's place. As they took off their thick fur cloaks, they complained that the weather was too cold. Before they could sit down and drink some hot tea, Xiao Chun, who was by Wang's side, rushed in and said with a smile, "Young master, young mistress. Young mistress has something to ask the two of you to hurry over." The two of them looked at each other in surprise. Shi Fengju smiled and said, "What's wrong? Mother is bored and wants to play mahjong with us? Young mistress has other things to do, so she won't go over. Let's go, I'll go with you." Xiao Chun hurriedly smiled and said, "Young master, it's best to ask young mistress to go with you. Young mistress received a letter. It seems to be a letter from third master. I don't know what it's about." "Third uncle?" Shi Fengju was stunned. He smiled at Sangwon and said, "Third uncle is an official in Sichuan and hasn't sent a letter home for 2 years. Maybe something really happened. Let's go and take a look." "Okay." Sangwon nodded and hurriedly ordered someone to bring back the cloak she had just taken off and put it back on. She couldn't help but secretly hope that nothing had happened. She hoped that the people in the third branch weren't like eldest Missy and her husband. When Shi Fengju and Sangwon arrived, Wang had already asked someone to read the letter. She handed the letter to Shi Fengju and said, "Your third uncle, third aunt, and your 2 cousins said that they'll be back for the new year. I'm afraid that they'll be here in a few days. Hurry up and tidy up a few rooms in the house. Also prepare a set of clothes, bedding, and daily necessities." Why did third uncle and third aunt suddenly say that they're coming back? Did something happen? Shi Fengju was shocked. He hurriedly took the letter and opened it. Chapter 151. Sangwon, on the other hand, was secretly complaining. She had never been in charge of the household's affairs. Now that it was almost the new year, she had to deal with the cleaning and decorations, the worship of the ancestral hall, the banquets, the gifts from relatives and friends, the rewards from the servants, and the food and clothing of the family. Even with the help of Mama Li Xingji and Luya, the housekeepers would still find fault with her from time to time. She was already very busy. If the third branch were to return at this time, wouldn't she have to make arrangements for the masters and servants? It would be fine if they were easy to talk to and understanding, but if they were like Shi Yume and her husband, they could forget about having a peaceful new year. I didn't hear anything about it in the letter. Let's wait for them to return before we read it. Why didn't they send a letter earlier if they were coming back? It's already so late, and they're still rushing back. Wang sighed. Shi Fengju pointed at the letter and laughed. "Mother, you've wronged third uncle. This letter was sent 2.5 months ago. Something must have happened on the road that delayed the delivery of the letter." Shi Fengju raised his eyebrows slightly. Perhaps third uncle and the rest were also delayed on the road. We have to quickly tidy up the house. Who knows when they'll be back? Yes, yes. Wang then said to Sangwon. "Wan Yang, you'll have to work harder. When we return, get someone to make the arrangements. Your third uncle and third aunt haven't returned for 7 or 8 years. Don't let them feel wronged. It won't be good if word gets out." Even though Wang Shi had a grudge against third old master Shi Guanghui, and third old mistress Shi Zhang Shi, they were still a family after all. "Yes, mother." Sangwon calmly bowed and agreed. This was part of her job, and she couldn't escape from it anyway. "I remember that third uncle and third aunt used to live in Qinghui Garden. That garden has been empty for so many years, and it's impossible to clean it up in a short period of time. Moreover, it's been empty for a long time, so it's cold and empty. Why don't we clean up another place for them to stay for the time being? We'll make plans next year," Shi Fengju said with a smile. Wang was a little hesitant and said, "That's not very good. They've always lived in Qinghui Garden. The other courtyards are not as spacious and grand as Qinghui Garden. If we change their place, won't they be unhappy? It's going to be the new year soon. Don't make the family unhappy. It's inauspicious. Third uncle and third aunt don't seem like such people. Mother, you worry too much. Shifengju smiled and said, Qinghui Garden has 3 courtyards and dozens of rooms of various sizes. Just getting rid of the dust and cleaning will take a few days. Also, the weeds and flowers in the courtyard will have to be trimmed. The doors and windows will be old, and the window paper and curtains will have to be replaced. Not to mention decorating the house. How long will it take? Who knows, they might come back before it's done. At that time, wouldn't it be even worse? Wang was also put in a difficult position. She couldn't help but feel a little regretful. If she had known earlier, she wouldn't have locked Qinghui Garden in a fit of pique. After so many years, she didn't have the time to take care of it. Otherwise, she wouldn't be in such a mess now. Alright. Wang was also someone who had been a housekeeper before. Thinking about how big Qinghui Garden was, and how it had been abandoned for so many years, it was easier said than done to renovate it. It was really making things difficult for Sangwon. Thus she nodded and said, then let's first prepare Jichui Tower, and let them stay there temporarily. Jichui Tower was in the southeast of the garden. It faced the peony garden, and was an independent small courtyard. Usually there would be someone to clean it. Only a simple layout was allowed. There were 8 rooms of different sizes. It should be enough for them to stay in. They came back from a long distance, and probably didn't have a lot of luggage. Even if they did, they could just put it in the storeroom. As for the servants, only a few would stay close to them. The rest would be arranged to stay in the servants' rooms in the residence. Mother is right. I also feel that Jichui Tower is suitable. That's right, my 2 younger sisters aren't young anymore. I'm afraid they won't be staying with third uncle and third aunt. We have to prepare another place for them to stay. It was really troublesome. One couldn't help but frown. She impatiently waved her hand and said, I don't care about that. You guys do as you see fit. Shifengju smiled and said, the Han Shuang Pavilion on the east side of Jichui Tower isn't small. Let's go there. The 2 younger sisters probably only have a wet nurse and 4 or 5 servant girls. It won't be crowded. Wang smiled and nodded. She smiled at Sangwon and said, Wanyang, you heard that. Go back and make the arrangements. Hurry up. Also, let's not talk about other things. Bed curtains, mattresses, and charcoal must all be prepared. This year's winter is really cold. I don't know how many clothes they brought. Let's prepare 2 sets each. Sangwon didn't care about anything else and just agreed. She could only go back and ask Mama Lee and the others in detail. Right now, she was really in the dark. She didn't even know if her third uncle and aunt and her 2 younger sisters were round or flat, tall, short, fat or thin. Don't just agree. You have to do it well. Third uncle and third aunt are finally back after so many years. Don't let them hold any grudges. Sister-in-law, you have to be more careful. Sure, Yume couldn't help but interrupt from the side. Your big sister is right. Leave the other things to the servants first. You just have to keep an eye on this for the next few days. Wang couldn't help but nod. Yes, mother. Wanyang understands. Sangwon answered. Sure, Yume glanced at Shifengju and said faintly, since you've said it, then you have to do it well. Fengju is finally resting at home for a few days. Don't push everything to him when you go back. He shouldn't be worried about these things. Second brother, you're really wishy-washy. Mother didn't even ask you just now, so why do you have so much to say? I remember that you used to not care about these household matters. Wang didn't feel distressed. She glared at Shifengju and said angrily, don't get involved in women's matters. Have a good rest. If Ning Garden is too noisy, you can come to Mother's place. You can do whatever you want and no one will disturb you. Mother. Big sister. What are you talking about? Shifengju didn't know whether to laugh or be angry. Third uncle and third aunt are also my elders. I'm just giving them an idea. How can they be tired? Besides, Wanyang has only been in our family for less than a year. How would she know third uncle and third aunt's temperament and preferences? How would she know how to arrange things? Shouldn't I give them some advice? Mother didn't say you shouldn't, Wang said with a smile. I just don't want you to tire yourself out. She then asked if he had eaten the ginseng and bird nest sent over a few days ago. Why would Shi Fengju eat these out of the blue? He only said vaguely, yes. Then he changed the topic and said that it was getting late. He pulled Sangwon and left. Mother, you don't care. Shi Yumei said angrily. Look at second brother. He only cares about his wife and doesn't allow others to talk about it. Other people marry their wives to serve them. He, on the other hand, married a wife and worshipped her like a bodhisattva. Ai, that's enough. Why are you still talking about this at a time like this? Wang frowned and thought for a while. Then she said in puzzlement, tell me, why did your third uncle and third aunt come back all of a sudden? They didn't even mention the reason in the letter. Shi Yumei was speechless. Her mother's train of thought was not on the same line as hers. How would I know? Shi Yumei said unhappily. We'll know when they come back. Wang snorted silently. For a moment, she didn't know what to feel. She always cared about the third branch getting this official position. When they weren't at home, it was better. She would pretend that it didn't happen. But now that they were back, she couldn't pretend that it didn't happen. If they were to return home in glory, then all the benefits would be taken by the third branch. If Madame Zhuang knew, she would probably laugh at her. Wang couldn't stand it anymore as she imagined it in her mind. Jiang Mama, Wang turned her head and called. Prepare 2 sets of my clothes and jewelry. She meant to prepare 2 sets of the best and most appropriate. She couldn't let others look down on her. Jiang Mama had worked closely with her for decades. Of course, she understood what she meant. She immediately bowed and answered loudly, yes. On the way back to Ning Garden, Shi Fengju whispered to Sangwon, don't take eldest sister's words to heart. Sangwon glanced at him and nodded with a smile. What she said isn't wrong. She's just concerned about you. At least compared to the words she said before, it could be considered gentle. For Sangwon, who had been trained by her sharp and unkind words, it was nothing. More importantly, her mother-in-law didn't care very much, so she didn't take it to heart. Shi Fengju smiled and said, don't worry. Third uncle and third aunt finally came back. As a junior, I shouldn't stay out of it. Let's do this together. In fact, it's just a matter of talking. There will be people to do it. Sangwon gave him a grateful smile and nodded. In. She took the opportunity to ask, third uncle and third aunt, where are they officials? How come I've never heard anyone mention them in the past half a year in the manor? Even Mammy Lee had never mentioned it to her. In her previous life, although she knew that there was a third branch and that they had come back, she had already been left out in the side yard at that time, and had never seen them at all. Even though he had lived 2 lives, he still knew nothing about them. Shi Fengju helplessly smiled at her question. He thought to himself, of course no one in the manor would dare to talk about them. Who would have the guts to offend my mother and second aunt? Mother and second aunt had different opinions on most things, but they agreed on this matter. They hoped that the third branch's traces in the manor would disappear completely. It would be best if no one remembered them. He said, third uncle has always been an official in Sichuan. When he first went there, he was the county magistrate of Zhengke County. 2 years ago, he was promoted to the prefectural magistrate of Bazhou. They've been away from home for 7 or 8 years, so no one in the manor will mention them. Third uncle and third aunt are actually very nice people. They treat people very kindly. They also have 2 younger sisters. Second sister is 16 this year, and fourth sister should be 10 years old. I think third uncle and third aunt have taught them manners. Speaking of the 2 younger sisters, Shi Fengju didn't have much of an impression of them. After all, it had been so many years. Who knew what their temperaments were like now? Sangwon couldn't help but feel her scalp go numb. She subconsciously thought of Shi Yumei. If these 2 young misses relied on the fact that they were official misses, and were unmarried, they would be more noble. When they acted coquettishly, they would be better than Shi Yumei. Sangwon complained in her heart. Why was she always so unlucky? Chapter 152. Shi Fengju knew what she was thinking when he saw her frown. He comforted her with a smile. Don't worry, we just have to do our part. They're from the third branch after all, so they have third uncle and third aunt to teach them. Sangwon was suddenly enlightened. Although they were from the same family, there were differences between those who were close and those who were distant. If they were really unruly, there was no reason for them to make trouble for her. Even if they came, she could evade them. Fourth sister is only 10 years old this year? Then didn't she follow them to Sichuan when she was only 2 years old? Sangwon asked in surprise. Since ancient times, the road to Sichuan was difficult, and it was so far away. Sangwon found it unbelievable that the third branch would take such a child with them. That's right, Shi Fengju said with a smile. Not to mention fourth sister, second sister was only 7 or 8 years old at that time. She wasn't even as old as Shi Rui. Originally, third uncle wanted third aunt to take the child and stay in the residence, but third aunt insisted on taking the 2 younger sisters with her. Third uncle couldn't persuade her otherwise, so he could only go along with her. Sangwon nodded. Third aunt was probably afraid that third uncle would be far away from third aunt, right? She had her own ideas and was decisive. Eldest young master. Eldest young mistress. As the two were talking, Chang Huan suddenly ran over panting. Eldest young master, eldest young mistress, third master and his family are back. What are you panicking for? Shi Fengju scolded impatiently. We already know, you can leave now. Wait, stay in the outer courtyard. Maybe there's something for you to do. Don't run around. No, Chang Huan said anxiously. Third master and his family are already at the entrance of the residence. They're walking inside. What? Shi Fengju and Sangwon's expressions changed at the same time. They're already in the residence? Sangwon couldn't believe it. Yes. Eldest young mistress. Chang Huan hurriedly said. First madam and eldest young miss have already gone over. They asked this servant to invite the 2 of you over quickly. Sangwon looked at Shi Fengju. Shi Fengju looked at her and said, let's hurry over. Let's bring them into the residence first. Sangwon nodded. The 2 of them hurried over. When the 2 of them arrived at the second gate, Wang and Shi Yumei had also just arrived. Second Lord Shi and second old mistress Shi also arrived not long after. Shi Fengju wanted to meet the second Lord Shi, so he went out to greet him. Wang and the others waited outside the second door. Maids, daughters-in-law, and older female servants stood in a dense crowd, whispering to each other and craning their necks to see if there was any difference between third old master and third madam after becoming an official. Eldest sister-in-law, what do you think third uncle and third sister-in-law are doing? Why didn't they give us a heads up? They're already at our doorstep. Third old mistress Shi said with some dissatisfaction. Wang was also not in a good mood. When she received the news that the carriage had already stopped outside the residence, she didn't even have time to change her clothes. She was still wearing her half-new lychee red robe with grey patterned patterns, and a silver-grey pleated skirt. She only had time to change into a golden hairpin with a jade phoenix inlaid with rubies and a large cloak made of fire leopard fur before rushing over. She said, who knows? We did receive a letter, but it was just received. Who knew that they would arrive just as we finished reading the letter? Third old mistress Shi originally wanted to ask why they didn't say anything when they received the letter. Hearing that, she let out an "oh" and smiled. That's great, we didn't prepare anything at home. Wan Yang, you're going to have to work hard again. Sangwon glanced at Wang and smiled. This is what Wan Yang should do. Wang, however, said, don't panic. Even if something goes wrong, it's not your fault. Just do your best to do it well. Sangwon was slightly surprised, but she would be a fool if she didn't agree. She quickly smiled gratefully at Wang and nodded. I understand. Just as they were talking, third old master Shi, third old mistress Shi, and their group of 13 to 14 people walked over. Wang and the rest quickly went forward to welcome them. When they saw each other, there was no lack of lively and affectionate greetings. Sister-in-law, sister-in-law, third aunt, third uncle, and so on were all over the place. Sangwon secretly sized up third old master Shi and his wife. They were both in their 40s or 50s. Third old master Shi had a medium build, and was slightly more muscular than second Lord Shi. He had a square face, brown skin, long and narrow eyes and a neat beard. His every movement exuded a dignified aura, and he was all smiles when talking to his brother and sister-in-law. Third old Mistress Sher's skin was fair and clean, and her facial features were graceful and dignified. Even though she greeted everyone with a smile, she was much more reserved. Two girls, one big and one small, followed behind her hand. Their hair was combed into 2 rings, and the style of their clothes and accessories were exactly the same. The only difference was that one was rose red, and the other was beige. At that moment, everyone went to Wang's hall to sit down and talk. Other than the personal maidservants, the rest were led away to rest by the housekeepers. Third old Mistress Sher brought their 2 daughters to greet Wang and second Lord Sher again, and had their 2 daughters greet them. Sher Yuzhen already had memories of when she left, so she could vaguely match the people in front of her with the ones in her memory. She smiled sweetly and greeted them one by one. When she heard eldest aunt and second aunt greeting her with smiles, she felt a sense of closeness that she hadn't felt in a long time. She relaxed in an instant, and when she saw Sang Wan, whom she didn't know, she joked, "Sister-in-law is so pretty." Everyone laughed. To Sher Yulin, other than her parents, sister, and wet nurse, everyone else was a stranger. She couldn't help but feel a little timid. After greeting them, she quickly held her sister's hand and retreated to the side. After they greeted each other, Sher Fengjiu, Sang Wan, and the rest had to greet third uncle and third aunt. After another round of greeting, Fang'an sat down to talk. Nanny Jiang smiled and led Sher Yuzhen and her sister, as well as their wet nurse, into a warm room. She ordered the servants to serve them tea, fruits, and snacks, and the people in the main hall began to talk. "I really didn't expect you to arrive today. I didn't have time to prepare anything." Wang spread her hands and sighed. Third old Master Sher and his wife thought that their sister-in-law was just being polite. Third old Master Sher quickly smiled and said, "We're all family, there's no need to be so particular. Sister-in-law, you're treating us as outsiders." "That's right." Third old Mistress Sher also smiled. Wang sighed and said, "It's good that you can understand. My heart is finally at ease. Don't you think it's such a coincidence? Fengjiu and I had just finished reading the letter you sent back, and we didn't even have the time to send it to second uncle and second sister-in-law. We really didn't prepare anything, and you're already here. This is really... Kiki, what a coincidence." "What?" Third old Master Sher and third old Mistress Sher couldn't remain calm, and widened their eyes in shock. "How could this be?" Third old Mistress Sher cried out. "We clearly sent the letter 2 months ago." "A third sister-in-law," Wang quickly said. "I didn't lie to you. We really only received the letter today. If you don't believe me, ask Fengjiu. Oh no, call the gatekeeper over and ask him who sent the letter." Third old Mistress Sher's face turned red and she opened her mouth, but no words came out. Third old Master Sher quickly smiled and said, "Look at what sister-in-law is saying. Why would you lie to us? It's a long journey. Something must have happened along the way and delayed you. Sister-in-law, please don't think too much about it." Third old Mistress Sher lost interest and glanced at her husband without saying a word. She couldn't help but feel wronged and thought to herself, "What did I say? I just asked for no reason, and now it's all my fault." Wang quickly smiled and said, "Third uncle, I'm relieved to hear you say so." As she said so, she smiled awkwardly and said, "When we received the letter, we were discussing how to quickly clean up the room for you. Who knew that before we could do anything, you would arrive? Isn't this tonight? How were they going to stay tonight?" Wang was too embarrassed to say it out loud. Third old Master Sher and third old Mistress Sher looked at each other. They didn't think of that just now. Second Lord Sher coughed and looked at the crowd before saying, "How about this? Third brother and third sister-in-law will stay in the guest room for the night. Let eldest niece-in-law quickly clean up your room. This can't be helped, so let's just make do with it for now." It was impossible for third old Master Sher and third old Mistress Sher to not feel uncomfortable after hearing that. After all, this was their own home. They had returned to their own home, but they still had to stay in the guest room. Moreover, they hadn't been back for so many years. Now that they were finally back, they would more or less be a little sensitive. They were afraid that they would be neglected or ostracized by this family. Who knew that they would really meet such a situation? Then let's just make do with it for now. We're family, there's no need to mind. Hee eldest niece-in-law, we'll have to trouble you again. Even though third old master sure felt a little uncomfortable, he knew that this was too much of a coincidence. He couldn't possibly force them to clean up the room immediately. Moreover, they wouldn't be able to make it in time. Third uncle, you're too courteous. I'll definitely get someone to clean up the room as soon as possible. Sangwon smiled. Third old master sure also smiled and nodded. Third old mistress sure lowered her head and drank her tea without saying a word. Oh right, third brother. Why did you come back all of a sudden? Did something happen? Second lord sure asked again. Wang, second old mistress sure, and the others listened attentively when they heard that. Third old master sure and third old mistress sure subconsciously exchanged glances. Both of them felt a little uncomfortable. Third old master sure coughed and said with a smile, I fell seriously ill last year. My body is really weak, so I resigned. I might have to stay at home for some time. Resigned? Everyone exclaimed in unison. Wang thought to herself, no wonder he didn't mention it in the letter. He was probably too embarrassed to say it. Why did you resign all of a sudden? Second old mistress sure immediately said anxiously. I a third uncle, it wasn't easy to become an official. It's such a pity to resign. Isn't this a waste? Third old mistress sure was unhappy and smiled. Second sister-in-law, you don't know this. Resigning doesn't mean that I'm not going to work anymore. This is only temporary. I can still fill the vacancy after 1 or 2 years. 1 or 2 years. That's so long. Second old mistress sure was even more shocked. Third sister-in-law, people always say that tea cools when people leave. In 1 or 2 years, the daylily would have already gone cold. By then, how could he still be recognized? Chapter 153. Third old mistress sure's face turned ugly and she sighed. This is the imperial court's rule. How can we not acknowledge it? Besides, our old master's health is more important. He can't possibly disregard his health just to be an official. What would that be? Second old mistress sure was also unhappy and thought to herself, you're still in the right. Even though your old master is the one in this position, the most reliable one is the Sure family's. How can you resign just like that without even giving a heads up? I don't know about the imperial court's rules, but I'm puzzled. Third uncle has been fine for so many years, so why did he suddenly fall so sick last year? I don't know about that either. Third old mistress sure said coldly. A person eats all sorts of grains, who knows when he will fall sick? The climate over there isn't too good. Now that old master has resigned, who knows, he might be assigned to a better place next time. Oh, then we'll see in a year or 2. Second old mistress sure despised the word might, and thought to herself, what do you mean by might? I think it's definitely not. You don't even have the confidence to speak. Who are you trying to fool? Third old mistress sure could hear the sarcasm in her tone, and was furious. She raised her eyebrows and was about to speak when third old master sure raised his voice and cut her off with a smile. In any case, I'll try to get a better place next time so that I can contribute to our Sure family. Speaking of which, I'm really ashamed. I've been far away in the southwest for so many years and had to rely on my family's allowance every year, but I've never done anything for my family. It's a long story and I won't be able to finish it in such a short time. I'll tell my brother and sister-in-law about it when I've settled down. Since he had already said so much, no one dared to say anything else. They smiled and said, we're brothers, there's no need to be so formal. That money is what you deserve. What's there to be ashamed about? Sure Fengju saw that it was about time and smiled. Third uncle, third aunt, you must be tired, right? Why don't I bring you to the guest room to rest? Let's have dinner together tonight as a welcome dinner for third uncle and third aunt. Third old master sure and third old mistress sure couldn't wait to leave and rest first. They smiled politely and stood up to leave. Third old mistress sure immediately sent for her 2 daughters. Wang smiled and said, my place is quite spacious, and the room is warm. Why don't the 2 sisters stay here? Third old master sure quickly smiled and said, then I'll have to trouble sister-in-law. Who knew that third old mistress sure would laugh and say, no need, no need. It was better to stay in the guest room as well. These 2 children are very noisy, It won't be good if they disturb eldest sister-in-law. She insisted on taking Shi Yuzhen and her sister away. Well then do as you please. Wang didn't say anything when she saw her insistence. After they left, second old mistress Shi pulled Wang aside and whispered to her, "Sister-in-law, look at third sister-in-law. You were kind enough to leave 2 nieces behind to take care of them. But instead of thanking them, they thought too much. They must be afraid that you would ask them something in private, so they anxiously wanted to take them away. Good intentions really didn't pay off. I feel it's unfair for my sister-in-law." Wang did not think that way at first, but after hearing second old mistress Shi's words, her heart skipped a beat. Thinking about it carefully, wasn't that the case? Look at how anxious Zhang Shi was at that time. What nonsense are you spouting? Wang was so angry that her face turned pale, but she said, "Which mother doesn't love her children? It's not wrong for third sister-in-law to be worried about them." "You're so stubborn." Second old mistress Shi glanced at her angry expression and chuckled. "Eldest sister-in-law, you're right. It seems that I've been overthinking." With that she left. Wang slowly let out a breath and called Sangwon over. "Quickly go and prepare." Sangwon was waiting for her to say that, so she smiled and said, "Then daughter-in-law will go. If there's anything I can't decide, I'll ask mother. There's also tonight's menu. I'll send it over for mother to take a look after it's done. Mother, please don't think that daughter-in-law is stupid." Wang was annoyed with Rizhang, so why would she care about the third branch's matters? She waved her hand and said uninterestedly, "Mother can rest assured that you'll handle things as you see fit. There's no need to ask me. I can't say anything even if you ask me. Since we're all family, you don't have to be so reserved. I'm too lazy to look at tonight's menu. You can discuss it with the kitchen. Hurry up and prepare, don't make it too late." Sangwon could only agree and turned to leave. On the way, she met Shi Fengjiu, who was returning from the guest room. So the two returned to Ning Garden together. "It's not right for third uncle and third aunt to stay in the guest room. Hurry up and get someone to clean up Jichui Tower and Han Shuang Pavilion," Shi Fengjiu said with a smile. Sangwon smiled bitterly. "Mother won't care anymore. You have to help me. Otherwise, she might end up in trouble again." Shi Fengjiu liked to hear that, so he smiled and said, "Don't worry if I don't help you. Who else will I help? If anything goes wrong, just push the blame to me." Sangwon couldn't help but giggle and said angrily, "How would I dare to push the blame to you? Mother won't forgive me." As they spoke, the two of them laughed, and their moods relaxed a lot. When they returned to Ning Garden, without waiting for Sangwon's instructions, Xingji hurriedly came forward and said with a smile, "Young mistress, the kitchen will send the menu over in a while. The masters will hurry up and prepare it. I don't know which room to clean up, but Luya has already gone to find people and tools. Mama said that she'll go see if the aunties and older sisters who came back with third master and third madam have made proper arrangements. She should be back in a while, so young mistress and young master should take a rest first." Sangwon and Shi Fengjiu looked at each other and smiled. "It's hard for you to be so thorough. If someone comes to trouble us later, you can send them away. Tell someone to tell Luya to clean up Jichui Tower and Han Shuang Pavilion. Young master and I will go over later to see how to add things." Xingji hurriedly agreed and went to give the instructions. The two of them sat down, and a servant poured tea for them. Jichui Tower and Han Shuang Pavilion are usually cleaned, so it's not troublesome to clean them up. There's everything in the storeroom, so it's easy to prepare them. You don't have to worry. Shi Fengjiu smiled. Sangwon smiled and replied, "In." Not long after, the kitchen sent over the menu. Most of the dishes were specialty dishes from their hometown, such as smoked pork with pine nuts, crab tofu, orchid meat, golden tenderloin, and so on. It could be seen that the kitchen had put in a lot of effort to appease third old master Shi and his wife's homesickness. Sangwon took a look and passed the menu to Shi Fengjiu, smiling. "I don't know how third uncle and third aunt likes it. Mother said that there's no need to show it to her. Take a look, and if there's nothing wrong, ask the kitchen to prepare it quickly." Shi Fengjiu smiled and took the menu. After taking a few glances, he nodded and smiled. "Auntie Han has been in charge of our household's kitchen for more than 20 years. The things she prepares will definitely not be wrong." That's all. Sangwon quickly asked the servants to send the menu to the kitchen. At the same time, Mama Lee also returned. Sangwon smiled and said, "Nanny, you must be tired. Take a rest. Young master and I are about to go to Jichui Tower to take a look." Shifengju asked, "Have the people that third uncle and third aunt brought back settled down? They didn't say anything, right?" Some of those people were the old servants in the household, while some were bought from there. But after serving the officials for so many years, it was inevitable that they would develop a superior temperament. They might even find fault with the servants. When the servants make a fuss, they would be slapping the master's face. Moreover, those people only knew how to fight for the master's dignity. They were even harder to deal with than the master. "Young master, don't worry. The old slave has been settled down. He's fine now. The old slave is really tired. After resting for a while, we'll go to Jichui Tower to see what needs to be done." Mama Lee smiled. Those people were indeed difficult to deal with, but she was the young master's wet nurse. With her around, they would be embarrassed to not give her some face. That was why they didn't make a fuss. "Thank you for your hard work, Nanny. You should rest first." Shifengju smiled and nodded. He then went out with Sangwon. The floor of Jichui Tower had already been cleaned up. Everyone was carrying water to wipe the doors, windows, pillars, and corners. When they saw Shifengju and Sangwon come in, they hurriedly bowed in greeting. "No need to be so courteous. Hurry up and get to work." Sangwon smiled and said, "In any case, after working hard for a day or two, everyone will be heavily rewarded." Sangwon never hesitated to reward everyone. When everyone heard this, they were delighted. They all smiled and thanked the young mistress, then worked hard. "How is Han Shuang Pavilion?" Sangwon asked Luya. "Hong Yi is watching over there. Young mistress, don't worry." Luya hurriedly smiled and said, "This place is very messy and dusty. Young master and young mistress should go back first. It won't be too late to come back tomorrow after cleaning up today." Sangwon smiled and said, "Since we're already here, why not take a look? Go ahead and do your work. Don't worry about us." As she said this, she walked inside with Shifengju. Shifengju stopped Luya and ordered her to prepare a brush and ink. He smiled at Sangwon and said, "There are a lot of things to buy here. It'll be more convenient to write them down on paper." Thus, the two of them looked around from the beds, tables, chairs, and cabinets to the curtains and carpets. They discussed what should be placed there, what style of tables and chairs should be, what kind of wood should be used, what kind of curtains and carpets should be used, how to place decorations on the shelves, where to set up screens, where to set up brocade canopies, and so on. After nearly 4 hours, they finally finished discussing everything. Fortunately, Mama Lee came over not long after. She listened and secretly noted everything down. She said that she would open the storeroom early tomorrow morning to take out the things to dry and wipe them clean, so that they could be placed there by tomorrow afternoon. Sangwon suddenly remembered something and hurriedly said, "That's right. Earlier, Mother was wondering if third uncle and third aunt brought back enough clothes. Mama Lee, have someone tell them to come over tomorrow to take their measurements and quickly make the clothes. Also, see if there are any new bedding and bedding in the storeroom. If there are, quickly take them out to dry. If there aren't, quickly have someone buy them. We have our own silk shop, embroidery shop, and ready-made clothing shop. Don't worry, it won't be troublesome." Shifengju smiled and told Mama Lee to have a servant inform the purchasing department. Mama Lee agreed and said with a smile, "Young mistress can go take a look at Han Shuang Pavilion tomorrow. Also, tell the old slave how to arrange things. The rest will be left to the old slave and the storeroom. After young mistress and young master have settled down, we'll see if they're satisfied and how to make changes. You should quickly go back and rest, freshen up, and change your clothes. We still have to go to First Madam's place for dinner tonight." Chapter 154. Sangwon was the eldest daughter-in-law. Although Wang was used to being lazy and didn't pay much attention to the rules, there were still many things that Sangwon had to arrange and mediate. When the time came, she would be busy and tired. Sangwon smiled and agreed. She asked someone to bring a stool for Mama Lee to sit on, and ordered someone to give her a hand warmer. She smiled and said a few words before leaving with Shi Fengju. After walking out of Jichui Tower, Sangwon felt that both her legs were numb, her waist and shoulders hurt, and her throat was dry and thirsty. She couldn't help but raise her hand to gently rub her shoulders and neck. A strong hand gently rested on her shoulder, and the slender fingers gently massaged her. Shi Fengju's gentle voice sounded in her ear. "Are you tired? You're too impatient. These things can be done tomorrow. Third uncle and third aunt will understand." Sangwon's shoulders and neck felt comfortable. She subconsciously relaxed her muscles and gently snorted. She tilted her head and smiled. "Don't we still have to do them tomorrow? It's better to do them early." Third aunt looked gentle, reserved and dignified. Just by looking at the way she talked to second aunt, she knew that she wasn't someone to be trifled with. Sangwon still wanted to have a few days of comfortable days, so she would rather work harder. She thought to herself that as soon as they entered the door, she had rushed to personally tidy up the place. She had already done enough. Even if they were dissatisfied, they wouldn't be able to pick on her. Shi Fengju smiled and shook his head. He couldn't help but look at her with gentleness and pity. He had never seen her work so seriously, meticulously, and immersed in it. Her every movement, every word, every frown, every smile, and even between her brows, she inadvertently revealed a noble temperament that deeply fascinated him. This was his wife. The more he interacted with her, the better he felt she was. However, he also felt that he knew too little about her. "How can you finish your work? Why tire yourself out?" Shi Fengju smiled. He couldn't help but approach her and whisper, "Let's go back quickly. I'll give you a good massage when we get back." Sangwon's face turned red, and she subconsciously pushed him away. "Don't move." Shi Fengju suddenly grabbed her soft and slightly cold hand and looked at her hair bun. "There's something dirty in your hair." He stretched out his other hand and gently twisted a piece of spider silk. Sangwon originally wanted to struggle, but after hearing this, she didn't care that he was still holding her hand. She stood still and let him help her take away the dirty things. Otherwise, if others saw it, it would be undignified. Hee. Shi Fengju was just about to show her the finger with the spider silk in it when he heard two young girls giggling. The two of them were shocked and looked towards the source of the sound. Sangwon hurriedly withdrew her hand and took a step back. Shi Fengju couldn't help but feel regretful and sullen. He smiled at Shi Yuzhen and Shi Yulin and said, "Second sister, fourth sister, why aren't you resting in your room? Aren't you tired from the journey?" Shi Yulin held her sister's hand and hid behind her. She looked at them with a smile and didn't say anything. Shi Yuzhen slyly blinked and said, "We're not tired. I was just about to take fourth sister to see third sister. Who knew that we'd run into big brother and eldest sister-in-law so coincidentally?" Shi Fengju smiled and said, "Then let's go quickly. Third sister must be bored in her room every day. She must be looking forward to having someone to talk to." Shi Yuzhen smiled and said, "Then we won't disturb big brother and eldest sister-in-law." She nodded at Sangwon and led Shi Yulin away. Not long after, the sisters' bell-like laughter could be heard. Sangwon was secretly embarrassed. She lowered her head and didn't speak to Shi Fengju again. Shi Fengju was also a little embarrassed. He thought to himself, "How can I be so unlucky? I finally managed to talk to my wife, but those two girls just had to run out again." After returning to Ning Garden, Xingji and the others helped the two change their clothes and wash their faces. After busying themselves for a while, they sat down in the warm room to drink tea and rest. That's right. Logically speaking, I should give my two younger sisters a greeting gift, right? Sangwon asked with a smile. Shi Fengju nodded and said with a smile, "Just prepare 1 or 2 pieces of jewelry. It doesn't have to be too expensive. Just give it to them during dinner." Sangwon smiled and said, "In." She pondered for a moment and picked out a golden hairpin for Shi Yuzhen and a pair of bracelets for Shi Yulin. "Fortunately, you were here today. Otherwise, I really wouldn't have a clue. I really wouldn't know where to start." Sangwon pondered for a moment and felt that it was better not to make this young master unhappy. If he decided to leave in a fit of pique and her mother-in-law didn't care, who would she go to? Moreover, he deserved this word of thanks. She had never decorated the house like this before. If Shi Fengju hadn't reminded her, it would have been quite difficult. Shi Fengju thought to himself. She finally opened her mouth. He smiled and said, "So I've helped you a lot? How are you going to thank me?" Profiteer. Sangwon rolled her eyes at him, and thought that she deserved it. Recently this person was getting more and more insatiable. She didn't dare to casually agree to anything. Shi Fengju wasn't in a hurry. He looked at her with a smile that wasn't a smile and lowered his head to drink tea. He was calm and unruffled as he waited for her answer. He found it more and more interesting to tease her. Looking at her troubled expression, his mood became much better for no reason. Young mistress. The heavens took pity on her. Xingji just happened to come in, and said with a smile that she had something to discuss with young mistress. Would it be convenient? Sangwon couldn't be more eager. She hurriedly nodded and said with a smile. Why would it be inconvenient? If there's anything, take your time. There's no hurry. Naturally, she fooled Shi Fengju. Shi Fengju was depressed, and could only concentrate on drinking tea. Xingji glanced at Sangwon strangely. She didn't know why young mistress was so happy. Her lips were smiling and her eyes were bright. She respectfully replied with a smile, yes. She then told Sangwon about the 3 to 4 daughters-in-law who came and went. At Peony Park, the news of Third Old Master Shi and his wife's return was quickly brought back by Lan Xiang. Gu Fengzi was at the stage where she was actively trying to rope in allies. Even if she couldn't rope them in, she couldn't let Sangwon pull them over. At that moment, she wanted to change her clothes and go out to meet them. But on second thought, she was still in mourning. Third Old Master Shi was an official and would place more importance on filial piety than others. If she went out like that, it might make him feel disgusted. Thus, she dismissed the idea and wrote a letter for Lan Xiang to send her greetings. Lan Xiang presented the letter to Third Old Master Shi and Third Old Mistress Shi, conveying Gu Fengzi's greetings and apologies for not being able to meet them personally. When Third Old Master Shi and his wife heard that Gu Jin had passed away, they sighed in surprise. They felt that Gu Fengzi was pitiful and asked Lan Xiang to convey some words of comfort to her. Third Old Mistress Shi also told her not to apologize and to just focus on mourning. In a few days' time, she would visit her with her 2 cousins. Lan Xiang smiled politely and left. Gu Fengzi was secretly happy when she got the reply. She knew that she did the right thing and won the favor of Third Old Master Shi and his wife. When she heard from Lan Xiang that they were staying in the guest room, Gu Fengzi was shocked and quickly asked why. Lan Xiang then told her about the coincidence of the letter and them arriving at the same time. Gu Fengzi couldn't help but laugh out loud and gloated. Now that's interesting. It's fine if third uncle doesn't mind, but it would be strange if third aunt doesn't mind. Lan Xiang smiled and said, that can't be. Isn't this too much of a coincidence? It's not like they neglected us on purpose. Who can Third Old Mistress blame? Gu Fengzi sneered. Seeing the truth is one thing, and accepting it from the bottom of your heart is another. No matter what, this is third uncle and third aunt's home. How can they return to their own home and still stay in the guest room? It's easy to talk to the masters, but the servants who don't know the inside story will inevitably gossip. Who knows what kind of nice things they will say? Could it be that third uncle and third aunt will explain to everyone that it's because the letter from home was delayed on the way and arrived at the same time as us, so we didn't have time to prepare the guest room? Lan Xiang couldn't help but laugh when she heard that. She nodded and said, what young miss said is true. This servant was still puzzled at first, wondering why Third Old Master and Third Old Mistress were staying in the guest room. It was only later that I found out about it. Gu Fengzi snorted proudly and said, these things have to be prepared by Sangwon. Keep an eye on that side and report back immediately if there's anything. We can't be idle anymore. We have to do something when the time is right. Also, you have to interact with the people around third aunt and third cousin, and build a good relationship with them. Lan Xiang perked up. This servant understands. This servant will go out and take a walk. Gu Fengzi was very satisfied with Lan Xiang's diligence and nodded with a smile. You just have to keep an eye on that side for the next few days. You don't have to worry about anything else. You don't have to serve me here either. Yes, Missy. In the guest room, third old master and third old mistress sure simply washed up and rested on the Earbook couch. There was no heated room here, so naturally, there was no Kong bed. They couldn't even sleep on it if they wanted to. Even the Earbook couch was moved in just now. It was already afternoon. How could a couple still sleep on the bed at this time? If others knew, they would laugh at them even more. Although there was a charcoal fire in the room and a thick cashmere blanket covering her body, third old mistress sure still felt cold. Coupled with the grievance in her heart, she felt even more uncomfortable. Third old mistress sure glanced at her husband and saw that his eyes were closed, his breathing was even, and his face was calm and comfortable. Third old mistress sure could not help but harumphed loudly and said in a bad mood, "Only you can still sleep. What's wrong now?" Third old master sure opened his eyes gently and smiled. "Aren't you tired from the journey? It wasn't easy to get home. Why aren't you relaxing? This home is much better than the outside." "Home?" Third old mistress sure sneered. "Look carefully, how is this a home? If this is a home, how can we stay here? Look at you, why are you talking about this again?" Third old master sure frowned and said, "Isn't this a coincidence? Sister-in-law and the rest can't predict the future. How would they know that we would arrive today? You can't be calculative about this." Third old mistress sure was at a loss for words. Yes, she knew that she couldn't blame anyone for this matter, but just thinking about it made her feel aggrieved. Going home was supposed to be a joyous occasion, but now, it was a disappointment instead. "It's all your fault. Why did you resign all of a sudden?" Third old mistress sure subconsciously glanced outside and grumbled. "They're fighting among themselves. Why must the people below sacrifice themselves? It's fine if they remember your sacrifice, but if they don't, not to mention really not remembering, even if they pretend to forget, what can you do? Are you going to spend the rest of your life in the household like this? Or are you going to learn how to do business from Fingju?" Chapter 155. What do you know as a woman? Third old master sure's face darkened and he said, "Don't say such nonsense, I know what I'm doing. Don't spout nonsense. The Grand Secretary is not that kind of person, let's just wait patiently." Third old mistress sure saw that her husband was angry, and did not dare to say anything more. She could only hold it in, but she was still unhappy. During dinner, the three branches gathered at Wang Shi's place for dinner. Wang Shi smiled, and invited everyone to take a seat. Although she still had a smile on her face, it was not as affectionate as it was in the afternoon. Instead, it was more polite. Sangwon learned her lesson and stood obediently beside Wang. Wang smiled and said, "Your third uncle and third aunt are not outsiders. It's enough to have the servants to serve you. Quickly sit down." Third old master Shi and third old mistress Shi also smiled and said, "Don't stand on ceremony." Sangwon smiled and excused herself before sitting down beside Shi Fengju. Third old mistress Shi glanced at Sangwon and smiled at Wang. "Wan Yang is really gentle and virtuous. Congratulations to eldest sister-in-law for marrying such a good daughter-in-law. Our old master's taste is really good." Third old mistress Shi's words did not have any other meaning, it was just a compliment. However, Wang had a guilty conscience and her face stiffened when she heard those words. She forced a smile and said, "Isn't that so? Wan Yang is to my liking. Seeing how close the two of them are as a mother, I can rest assured and enjoy my life." Sangwon's face heated up when she heard those words. She subconsciously looked at Shi Fengju and saw that Shi Fengju's dark eyes were sparkling slightly, as if they were filled with passion. Sangwon panicked and almost spilled her rice bowl. This is eldest sister-in-law's fortune. Third old mistress Shi smiled again and said, "Wan Yang has been married into the family for more than half a year, right? Has there been any movement?" "Movement? What movement?" Sangwon was stunned, while Shi Fengju was slightly embarrassed. Wang subconsciously looked towards Sangwon's lower abdomen and thought to herself, "That's right, if third sister-in-law didn't mention it, I would have almost forgotten about it. Wan Yang has been married for quite some time now, and Fengju is quite attentive towards her. There should be some movement by now, right? But when she remembered that third old mistress sure was the one who asked this question, it was obvious that she was taking pleasure in third old mistress sure's misfortune. Wang's heart immediately felt unhappy and she let out a sigh, before smiling faintly. It has only been half a year since Wan Yang married into our family. It's still such a short time. How can it be so fast? There's still a long way to go. What's there to be anxious about? It was only then that Sangwon understood what third old mistress sure meant. Her heart tightened and her face flushed red as she lowered her eyes awkwardly. Third old mistress sure was startled and her smile was a little forced. Eldest sister-in-law is right. She couldn't help but feel annoyed. What's going on now? I was just casually asking and showing my concern. Do you have to give me such a cold shoulder? Aya, let's eat quickly. Don't just talk. The dishes are getting cold. Second old mistress sure interrupted with a smile. Everyone smiled and agreed before raising their chopsticks to eat. It had been a long time since the big family gathered together, and the atmosphere quickly became lively again. Only second old mistress sure looked at the first and third family. Now that it was almost the end of the year, she was the only one who felt lonely. Her son was still wandering around somewhere. She didn't even know if he was hungry or cold, or if he was doing well. As she thought about it, her heart couldn't help but feel heavy. After dinner, considering that third old mastershire's family must be tired from the long journey, they only sat in the parlor for a short chat before going their separate ways. Because of second old mistress Shire's words, Sangwon's heart felt uneasy. She felt that Shir Fengju's gaze towards her was getting deeper and deeper, as if it contained feelings that she didn't know and was afraid of knowing. Fortunately, he didn't say anything when they returned to Ning Garden. The two of them chatted as usual before washing up and going to bed. The moment Sangwon laid down on the bed, her heart finally settled down. Over at Dongha Hall's second household, second old mistress Shir sat on the Kong bed and thought about the family reunion. The more she thought about it, the more upset she felt. She couldn't help but complain to Nanny Lin about her son. The more she spoke, the sadder she felt, and her tears fell uncontrollably. Say, why is this child so disobedient? It's already been 2 years outside, and he's still so heartless. Doesn't he think about me, his mother? If something were to happen to him, how am I supposed to live on? Second old mistress Shir wiped her tears and said, as long as he's back, it's fine as long as he's back. I'll agree to anything he wants, alright? If he wants that woman to enter the family, then let her enter the family. I've had enough of these days of living in fear. Nanny Lin patted her back gently and consoled her. Old mistress, don't be sad. Second young master has always been smart. He's not someone who doesn't know anything. He brought quite a lot of money with him when he left, so I'm sure he's doing well outside. You're his mother. How could he not miss you? Who knows, maybe he'll be back after a while. Don't be sad. Second old mistress Shir snorted and said, if only he's back, I'll agree to anything he says. I'll fight to the death with whoever has an opinion. AI, no matter how good his life outside is, how can it compare to home? My poor son hasn't suffered much since he was young. Now that it's so cold, I wonder how he's going to suffer. As she spoke, she could not help but feel a little angry. Fengju has always promised to help me find him, but I don't know if he's taking it to heart. It's been 2 years since there's been any news of him. I'm starting to wonder what he's up to. Old mistress. Nanny Lin was taken aback and quickly consoled her. Please don't think that way. Young master isn't that kind of person. If young master were to hear what you're saying, he'd be very sad. The world is so big, isn't it easy to hide a person? The old slave thought, second young master will definitely be fine. If something were to happen, our Shir family has shops everywhere. Even if there aren't any shops, we have friends. If something were to happen, second young master could just ask someone to pass a message to him. Isn't that the most convenient thing for him? That's true. Second old mistress Shir complained a little about Shir Fengju in her heart. She also felt apologetic and did not mention it again. She only sighed at her hard life and felt sorry for her son who was suffering outside. Nanny Lin could only try to persuade her. In the end, it's all Jingyi's fault. Second old mistress Shir's gaze turned cold, and her sad expression turned into one of hatred. She slammed the coffee table beside her and said hatefully, "That useless thing. She can't even win over her own husband. How is she worthy of being someone's wife? If only she was a little bit more capable, why would my Fengming run away from home? It's all because she's useless." The more second old mistress sure spoke, the angrier she got. Her husband left home and did not return. Instead of staying at home obediently to pray for her husband and serve her in-laws, she ran back to her parents' house to enjoy life. "Tomorrow morning, go to her house and bring her back." "Yes, old mistress." Nanny Lin quickly agreed. She thought to herself that second young mistress sure was indeed not right. How could a daughter-in-law return to her parents' house for a few months without returning? "Go early in the morning, don't forget. You have to bring her back no matter what. As her mother-in-law, I have to teach her the rules, so that Fengming won't be angered by her again when he comes back. I can't afford to be tormented again." Second old mistress sure found an excuse to vent her anger and scolded second young mistress Zhou fiercely. Only then did her mood improve, and she talked about everything for the entire night. Second young mistress Shure's house was in Jinhe County of Linzhou Prefecture. Although it was a different prefecture from Qingzhou, Jinhe County was not far from Qingzhou City. It would only take an hour for a carriage to reach there. Nanny Lin personally took on this difficult task. The eastern horizon had just started to brighten, and the morning star was still hanging high in the sky. She wrapped herself in thick winter clothes, wore a warm hat, and called for a carriage to rush to Jinhe County with 4 to 5 maidservants. Very quickly, Nanny Lin and her entourage arrived at the Zhou household. When the gatekeeper heard Qingzhou's Sure family, his expression changed slightly. He quickly invited them to sit by the fire and drink tea while hurriedly sending someone to inform Old Master Zhou, Old Mistress Zhou, and Young Master Zhou. Even though the Zhou family was not as wealthy as the Sure family, they were still a well-known family in Jinhe County. Their family only had 600 to 700 mu of fertile land, but their mountain range stretched for dozens of li. If one were to drive a horse carriage through their mountain range, it would take at least 2 hours for them to get out. Most of the mountain range was planted with tung oil trees and tea trees. The Zhou family was also famous for their tung oil and tea oil, not only in Jinhe County, but also in Linzhou Prefecture and Qingzhou. Now, because of their marriage with the Sure family, the Zhou family's tung oil and tea oil were mostly supplied to the Sure family's businesses. They were one of the top suppliers of these two products. Therefore, they had the qualifications to be on equal footing with the Sure family, and were not afraid of the Sure family's wealth. The gatekeeper quickly informed Nanny Yang at the second gate. When Nanny Yang went in to report, the Sure family's second young mistress, Zhou Jingyi, had just woken up and was greeting her mother. Hearing that, both mother and daughter's expressions changed. "They still dare to come." Old Mistress Zhou slammed the table and said angrily, "Beat them out. Let them go back and tell Old Mistress Zhou to let her son come personally after she has taught him well. My daughter is not to be humiliated by others." She then asked, "Have you told Old Master and Young Master about this?" Nanny Yang quickly replied, "No." Old Slave heard from the gatekeeper, and was the first to rush over to inform Old Mistress and Young Mistress. Old Mistress Zhou nodded her head in satisfaction and waved her hand. "What are you waiting for? Go quickly. Don't be polite with them. If they don't want to leave, beat them out." She then said fiercely, "Do they think the Zhou family is easy to bully? How dare they come over and ask for my daughter? My daughter is not to be married off to be a widow. If I had known that the second son of the Sure family was such an unreliable person, I wouldn't care even if the Sure family was as rich as the heavens. This is really a case of dragons giving birth to phoenixes giving birth to phoenixes. The eldest son of the Sure family is so outstanding, how can the second son be so unreliable?" Old Madame Yang agreed, and was about to go out to do as she was told. Unexpectedly, Zhou Jingyi hesitated slightly and called out to Old Madame Yang. She said hesitantly to her mother, "Mother, this is not very good, right?" Old Mistress Zhou saw that her daughter was not on her side and glared at her angrily. "Why? Is this really the case of a married daughter spilled water? I'm helping you vent your anger, but you're siding with your in-laws." Chapter 156. Mother. Zhou Jingyi looked embarrassed and said, But there will come a day when I go back. We are happy now, but how will I live in the future? Old Mistress Zhou snorted. What's so difficult about that? If you can't live in the future, then just divorce. My Zhou family's daughter doesn't have to worry about not being able to find a better husband. No matter how bad it is, it's still better than being alone in an empty room. I don't want to. Zhou Jingyi's expression changed slightly and she said firmly, Mother, I won't marry again. Old Mistress Zhou was exasperated and she poked her head angrily. Don't tell your mother that you are still thinking about that heartless thing. That heartless man. Daughter, wake up. That kind of man who elopes with prostitutes is unreliable. Even if you don't marry again, you can't spend the rest of your life with him. If he can elope with a prostitute today, who knows, he might elope with a servant girl tomorrow. Who knows what he will do? Do you want your mother to be unable to close her eyes after 100 years? Mother. Zhou Jingyi's eyes welled up with tears. Mother, don't say that. Her mother did not give her any face. Although she was scolding Shi Fengming, he was still her husband. Every sentence was no different from scolding her face. Zhou Jingyi's face turned red and her tears flowed uncontrollably. No matter what, he was still her husband. Moreover, she really liked him. Old Mistress Zhou sighed and pulled her daughter into her arms. She patted her back gently and choked with sobs. Disappointing thing, aren't you deliberately making your mother sad? Mother. Zhou Jingyi was so worried that she couldn't help but cry out loud. Don't cry, don't cry. Old Mistress Zhou's heart ached for her daughter and she sighed. Then tell me, what do you mean? Are you going back with them? Go back. Her mother-in-law definitely did not have good intentions when she sent someone to pick her up. If she went back, she would definitely be tormented by her for no reason. Only a fool would go back. I'm not going back. Zhou Jingyi wiped her tears and shook her head. She said in a nasal voice, Before my husband comes back, I won't go back. When old Mistress Zhou heard this, the anger in her heart dissipated. Fortunately, this girl was sensible and didn't anger her to death. What if he never comes back? Are you going to spend the rest of your life like this? Your brother has always doted on you, and your sister-in-law is also virtuous. Even if you stay at home for the rest of your life, they definitely won't dislike you. But my daughter, it's not worth it. Old Mistress Zhou couldn't help but say. No. Zhou Jingyi's heart trembled. She shook her head and said, No, definitely not. How could her husband not come back? Even if he doesn't have me in his eyes, my parents-in-law are still here. I don't believe that he will stay outside for the rest of his life. Moreover, eldest uncle has been sending people to look for him for the past 2 years. There will be news one day. Madame Zhou sighed helplessly. She really wanted to ask, what if he's already dead outside? She also felt that it was going to be the new year, and it was inauspicious to say such words. She could not bear to hurt her daughter's heart, so she did not say it. She only said, I hope so. Hopefully, that brat will realize his mistake and mend his ways. If he shows up, we can't let him leave even if we tie him up. Zhou Jingyi couldn't help but want to laugh when she heard this. She quickly said, Mother, then look at those people from the Shi family. Old Mistress Zhou rolled her eyes at her and said to Auntie Yang, Go invite them in. Nanny Lin and the servants had been sitting in the living room for quite a while, but there was still no movement. Nanny Lin couldn't help but feel anxious. She smiled and asked the gatekeeper to pass on the message. How could the Zhou family not know what happened to their young miss? It was inevitable that the Shi family would not be pleasing to their eyes. How could they be willing to listen? They could only push it away. After all, they were in other people's territory. After a round of negotiation, Nanny Lin couldn't say anything else. She could only endure and continue to wait. Finally, a servant came and said that old Mistress Zhou wanted to see them. Nanny Lin quickly patted her clothes and thanked her with a smile, before leaving with the rest. Old Mistress Zhou waited in the side hall. Her daughter-in-law, Lu Shi, stood behind her while Zhou Jingyi had already gone out to hide. Old slave Zhou greets old Mistress Zhou. Nanny Lin smiled and went forward to kowtow. Old Mistress Zhou waited for her to kowtow before smiling faintly. Relatives don't need to be so polite. Get up. I think you look a little familiar. You seem to be Nanny Lin from old Mistress Zhou's side, right? Nanny Lin didn't expect old Mistress Zhou to remember her. She was delighted and quickly nodded with a smile. Old Mistress Zhou, you have a good memory. I am indeed old slave Zhou. Old Mistress Zhou smiled and said, Of course. Old Mistress Zhou takes care of my daughter so much. Of course, I have to pay attention to the people around her. Haha, have a seat. She ordered someone to bring a small stool over. Nanny Lin's smile stiffened. She was clear about how old Mistress Zhou took care of the young mistress. She believed that the young mistress wouldn't hide it from her mother when she returned home. Now that old Mistress Zhou spoke so casually with a smile, she suddenly felt uneasy. She had a premonition that this trip wouldn't go smoothly. Nanny Lin smiled awkwardly and thanked old Mistress Zhou before sitting down on the stool. Why are you here? Old Mistress Zhou asked with a smile. Nanny Lin hurriedly stood up and replied, Isn't it going to be the new year? Our old Mistress Zhou specially prepared some local specialties and ordered old slave Zhou to deliver them to old Mistress Qin. She handed over a gift list with both hands. The nanny next to old Mistress Zhou took it and handed it to old Mistress Zhou. Old Mistress Zhou flipped through it and put it aside with a smile. Old Mistress Zhou is too polite. She's so far away, yet she still thinks of us. Xian, prepare a generous gift for her later. Don't neglect it. Yes, mother. Lu Shi bowed and agreed. Nanny Lin hurriedly smiled and said, Old Mistress Zhou, you're too polite. Old Mistress Zhou said that our two families are in-laws. Naturally, we should interact more to show our closeness. That's true. Old Mistress Zhou smiled and said, Nanny Lin really knows how to talk. You must be tired after such a long journey in winter, right? Xian, quickly ask someone to take Nanny Lin down to rest. Ask the kitchen to prepare a few good dishes for her. Haha, it's not easy for you to go back at night. I won't keep you any longer. Go back after dinner. Send my regards to your old Mistress Zhou. Old Mistress Zhou said with a smile, and was about to get up. Old Mistress Zhou. Nanny Lin was anxious and thought to herself, You can't leave before we get to the point. Old Mistress Zhou did not wait for her to speak and said with a smile, This old woman is most afraid of the cold in winter. After sitting for a while, my hands and feet feel uncomfortable. I have to go back to my room to rest. If there's anything, just tell my daughter-in-law. There's no need to treat me as an outsider. How could that be? I'm afraid your daughter-in-law can't make the decision. Nanny Lin did not care about etiquette and hurriedly said, Old Mistress Zhou, please stay. Our old Mistress Zhou specially asked the old slave to pick up our second young Mistress Zhou. Seeing old Mistress Zhou's expression turn sluggish, and had the intention to listen carefully, Nanny Lin hurriedly smiled and said, Isn't it the new year? Second young Mistress Zhou is our Shi family's daughter-in-law after all. It's better for her to go back for the new year. Our old Mistress Zhou said that second young Mistress Zhou can come back whenever she wants to. Old Mistress Zhou sneered in her heart. Do you think I'm a 3-year-old child that's easy to fool? Go back. Going back would be tantamount to sending a sheep into a tiger's den. It would be harder than ascending to the heavens to bring her back. Old Mistress Zhou then put on a surprised and happy expression and said with a smile, Oh, but your second young master is back. My son-in-law is really too much. Since he's back, why didn't he come personally to pick her up? My daughter is his legal wife. Nanny Lin's face turned red and she stuttered, My second young master is not back yet. Not back yet. Old Mistress Zhou raised her eyebrows and sneered. If he's not back, then what are you doing here? If you have the time, then go look for your second young master. It's the new year and your son isn't even at home. Yet you're trying to control your daughter-in-law. Your Shi family is really interesting. Nanny Lin's face turned red and white. She did not expect old Mistress Zhou to be so sharp. Nanny Lin originally wanted to return home, but when she thought of second old Mistress Zhou's anger, her heart began to beat faster. If she returned empty-handed, second old Mistress Zhou would have no one to vent her anger on but her. Old Mistress Zhou, Nanny Lin sighed and said after some deliberation, You just said that second young Mistress Zhou is the legal wife of our Shi family. That makes her a member of the Shi family. How can she celebrate the new year at her maiden home? My second young master will come back sooner or later. Nanny Lin's last sentence contained a hidden threat. She meant that her second young master would come back sooner or later. If second young mistress Zhou did not give face to her husband's family, how could she face him in the future? After all, she was now a member of the Shi family. Old Mistress Zhou was furious when she heard that. Her face darkened and she cut her off rudely. Then we'll talk about it when your second young master comes back. What did my daughter do wrong? He abandoned my daughter for 2 years, and he still has the right to say that? I'm not afraid to say it here. Even if he comes personally today, if he doesn't show enough sincerity, don't even think about my daughter going back. Nanny Lin could not help but get angry and said, Old Mistress Zhou, since second young Mistress Zhou married into the Shi family, she's a member of the Shi family. Do you intend to keep her here forever? What do you mean by keep her here forever? Old Mistress Zhou was furious. She pointed at Nanny Lin and said, My Zhou family's daughter is fine even if you don't love her. She's fine at home. So what if she stays here forever? Everyone is fawning over your Shi family, but I won't buy it. I'll tell you the truth. If I knew that your second young master was such a person, I'd rather raise my daughter here forever than to become a joke in your Shi family. Your eyes are on the top of your head and you dare to threaten me. Throw her out. Old Mistress Zhou's eyes turned red as she spoke. She threw away all the concerns she had with her daughter, and only wanted to vent her anger. Old Mistress Zhou, how can you be so unreasonable? Nanny Lin could not help but get angry. Be reasonable? Is there any reason to be reasonable with you? Bring your second young master in front of me, and I'll have a good talk with him. Can you bring him out? Old Mistress Zhou did not show any weakness and ordered people to throw Nanny Lin out. Chapter 157. Lu Shi hurriedly tried to persuade her while instructing the maidservants to bring Nanny Lin away to rest. If there was anything else, they could talk about it later. In the end, Nanny Lin did not dare to be tough with Old Mistress Zhou. She held back her anger and left. Old Mistress Zhou scolded for a while before she stopped. She held Lu Shi's hand and cried, Xian, you saw it too. Your sister's life is really tough. Your father-in-law and I only have the two of them in our lives. Seeing your sister like this, I feel terrible. In the future, when the two of us pass away, you must take good care of your sister. Don't let her be bullied by others. Mother, don't think too much. Lu Shi helped Old Mistress Zhou to sit down, and ordered someone to bring hot water to wash her face. She hurriedly persuaded with a smile. You and father-in-law are still in good health. Why are you saying such depressing words all of a sudden? Sister is our biological sister. Even if you don't say anything, we will take good care of her. Besides, brother-in-law is still young. Who doesn't have a ridiculous time? Who knows, maybe after a while, he will come back naturally. By then he won't mistreat her. Don't think too much. Old Mistress Zhou let out a long sigh and smiled bitterly. You don't have to persuade me. I don't have much hope for him. I've seen many ridiculous things, but it's rare to see someone as ridiculous as him. I only feel sorry for my daughter. Lu Shi also felt sad for a moment. The maidservants brought water over. Lu Shi hurriedly rolled up her sleeves and personally wrung the hot towel for Old Mistress Zhou to help her wipe her face. A moment later, the maidservant brought over a mirror. Old Mistress Zhou looked at her reflection and tidied her hair. She waved her hand and gestured for the mirror to be taken away. She sighed again. It's all my fault. Why didn't I send someone to find out more? If only I knew. AI. Mother. Lu Shi sighed. Daughter-in-law, I'll say something unpleasant. That Nanny Lin is detestable, but she is right about one thing. Sister is still a member of the Shi family. Why? You also agreed to let your sister return to the Shi family? No, definitely not. Old Mistress Zhou was anxious and resolute. That's not what I meant. Lu Shi knew that her mother-in-law was an impatient person and quickly said, Sister is finally back. Of course, she can't go back just like that. Otherwise, it would be difficult to come back again. Since brother-in-law isn't coming back, little sister can stay in our house for now. However, we can't be too stiff with the Shi family. After all, When brother-in-law returns in the future, sister will have to go back sooner or later. If things get out of hand, little sister will be the one to suffer in the future. Old Mistress Joe thought about it and sighed. What you said makes sense. I was too angry just now. Later, treat Mama Lynn well, and give her a generous reward, so that she won't talk nonsense when she goes back. Lou hurriedly agreed, but she smiled hesitantly and said, Mother, I think it's better to let Nanny Lynn meet with little sister. Mother, think about it. Nanny Lynn's task today is to take little sister back. If she can't take little sister back, she will shirk the responsibility. Who knows what she will say in front of Madame Lynn? The heavens are high and the Emperor is far away. We can't do anything about it. She can say whatever she wants. Let her meet with my sister, and let her write a letter to your wife. In this way, Mama Lynn can answer to her, and your wife won't have anything to say. Isn't it the best of both worlds? Old Mistress Joe nodded slightly at first, then shook her head and said, It's still not good. What if Nanny Lynn insists on taking your sister away when she sees her? When that time comes, she will bring out that old woman. After all, she is your sister's mother-in-law. Can your sister refuse? Isn't that easy, Mother? Lou sure pursed her lips and smiled. Let's just let little sister pretend to be sick. Won't that be settled? That's right. Old Mistress Joe was overjoyed. She clapped her hands and smiled. You have a good idea. I think that's how it should be. Let's go prepare now. Later, you can bring Nanny Lynn to your sister's room. Yes, Mother. Lou sure smiled and agreed. The mother-in-law and daughter-in-law went to do their own things. Nanny Lynn and a few maidservants who came with her were resting in the lower room. Everyone saw that Nanny Lynn's expression was not good, so they tactfully kept quiet. Nanny Lynn nagged for an idea, but everyone said in unison, We'll listen to you. This made Nanny Lynn so angry that she scolded them in her heart. Sly. At this point, it seemed that old Mistress Joe would definitely not relent. Nanny Lynn was already prepared to go back and be scolded. But she couldn't possibly suffer from both sides, right? A scolding in front of second old mistress sure was unavoidable. She had to vent all the anger she suffered here in front of second old mistress sure. Unexpectedly, Lou sure personally came over to greet and comfort her. She was all smiles and said a lot of nice words, saying that Mother, you can't blame mother-in-law. Mother-in-law only cares about little sister. Little sister caught a cold a few days ago and is currently bedridden. She needs medicine every day, but you came and said that you wanted to bring her back. How could mother-in-law not be angry? It would be fine if her brother-in-law came, but he was nowhere to be seen. Mother-in-law was already angry because of this. Now that the two sides clashed, it was inevitable that her words would be a little harsh. However, mother-in-law was just venting her anger. She didn't mean anything else. Mother-in-law also felt that her words were too harsh, and asked me to personally come and take care of you. After hearing those words, Nanny Lynn felt that she had gained some face and her anger dissipated. She quickly smiled and said a few polite words before apologizing profusely. She said that it was because she didn't know how to speak properly that caused mother-in-law to be angry. It really had nothing to do with mother-in-law. However, Nanny Lynn was troubled again. What was the use of having face now? If she couldn't bring her back, she wouldn't be able to escape a good scolding. Is second young mistress really sick? Is it serious? Nanny Lynn probed. Lou sure sighed and said, It's not serious. Although little sister has come back, she has been depressed in her heart. Ai. Mother, tell me, how many women can be happy with little sister's experience? A few days ago, the maidservants weren't paying attention. For some reason, she opened the window and sat in front of it for half the night. The next day she had a high fever. These days she has been coughing very badly. The medicine has been continuous. Little sister definitely can't go back with you in this state. Her body is weak, and she is sick. In this kind of weather, how can she endure being moved around and rushing all the way? My mother-in-law won't be at ease. However, you came all the way here, so I can't let you go back like this. Otherwise, you won't be able to report back. How about this? Let's eat first. After eating, I'll take you to see little sister, and have her write a letter, so that you can report back. Nanny Lynn was overjoyed. She couldn't help but pray and said with a smile, "Good, good. Thank you, young Mistress Lin. Then it's settled. Later, you can take the old slave to see our second young mistress." "Of course." Lu Shi smiled and said, "I'll ask someone to prepare the meal. You can eat first. I still have some things to do, so I'll go first." Lu Shi saw that Nanny Lin didn't have a trace of concern or worry on her face when she heard that Zhou Jingyi was seriously ill. She didn't even ask anything. First, she was worried about her own job. After hearing what Lu Shi said, her face was full of joy. She didn't care about Zhou Jingyi at all. Lu Shi couldn't help but feel bitterly disappointed. She sighed for Zhou Jingyi in her heart. It was a pity that she was also a delicate girl who grew up in the hands of her parents and brothers. She didn't expect that she would suffer so much after getting married. After solving the problem, Nanny Lin's mood brightened up. The lunch prepared by the Zhou family was very sumptuous. Nanny Lin led everyone to eat to their heart's content. After the meal, Lu Shi didn't go back on her words. She led Nanny Lin to Zhou Jingyi's room. As soon as they entered the room, they could smell a strong smell of Chinese medicine. Nanny Lin frowned a few times before she forced herself to breathe in. Zhou Jingyi was lying on a bed decorated with golden mountains and rivers. She was wearing a pink undergarment. Her hair was messy, and her forehead was tied up. Her cheeks were flushed, and her lips were pale. When she saw someone coming, she opened her eyes in a daze. Her gaze was almost unfocused. "Second young mistress. Second young mistress. Old slave is here to see you. Old slave is Nanny Lin." Nanny Lin walked to the bed and greeted her with a smile. "Nanny Lin." Zhou Jingyi was stunned. She forced a smile and said, "So it's you. Why are you here?" As she spoke, she struggled to sit up. Lu Shi hurriedly stepped forward and held her down. She said gently, "Good sister, you're sick. Rest well. Don't move around." "Yes, second young mistress. You should rest well. Your health is more important." Nanny Lin also smiled and said, "Second old mistress said that the new year is coming and specially asked old slave to bring you back for the new year. Who knew that you would be sick? Ai. Mother-in-law sent you to bring me back." Zhou Jingyi suddenly became agitated. She couldn't help but cover her mouth and cough. She struggled to sit up. This time it wasn't just Lu Shi, Su Qing, and Su Bai who were anxious. Even Nanny Lin found it difficult to sit up. She quickly persuaded, "Second young mistress, don't be anxious. Lie down. Since you're so sick, you should stay here to recuperate. We'll talk about going back after a while. It's just that, second young mistress. Can you write a letter for this old servant to bring back?" Lu Shi, Su Qing, and the rest didn't look too good. Although they knew that Zhou Jingyi was pretending to be sick, Nanny Lin still couldn't forget about her letter when she was already so sick. It could be seen that Zhou Jingyi had no status in second old mistress Shi's eyes. Zhou Jingyi didn't think that there was anything wrong with it. Her mother-in-law and the people around her had always been like this. If her mother-in-law was half as good as her first aunt, why would she have to scheme to escape back to her maternal family? Sister-in-law. Zhou Jingyi said a few eyes, and looked helplessly at Lu Shi for help. Nanny Lin couldn't help but feel a chill in her heart. Second young mistress, you must hold on. If you don't bring something back to report, old mistress sure will skin me alive. Younger sister, don't be anxious. How about this, you tell me what you think and I'll write it for you. After I'm done, I'll read it to you and we'll edit it. What do you think?" Lu Shi gently patted her hand and said softly. Before Zhou Jingyi could reply, Nanny Lin smiled happily and said, Yes. This is a good idea. Young mistress sure is so smart. Second young mistress, you won't have to work so hard this way." Chapter 158. Lu Shi smiled faintly. "If that's the case, Nanny Lin, you may go down and wait. I'll send the letter over once I'm done." Nanny Lin did not want to stay in Zhou Jingyi's room for too long as she was afraid of being infected. Since she had already seen the person, it was enough for her to report back. Thus, she nodded happily and followed the servant who led the way. The Shi family really doesn't have any good people. Lu Shi gritted her teeth and scolded. Zhou Jingyi snickered and said faintly, "Sister-in-law, you don't have to lower yourself to the same level as this servant. Which servant doesn't act according to the circumstances? My husband is away and my mother-in-law is angry at me. Servants worship the strong and trample on the weak. Why would they take me seriously?" Lu Shi's eyes stung and she sighed softly. "That's right, this husband is the sky for us women." If Sangwon was here, she would probably empathize with the two's words. After all, there was no need to find examples from others to make comparisons. Her 2 lifetimes had proven this point. Her words were like rubbing salt on the wound. Lu Shi regretted her slip of the tongue and smiled. "My good sister, hurry up and write the letter. Sending that servant away is the right thing to do." "Yes." Zhou Jingyi smiled and stood up. Suddenly she sighed softly. "We managed to fool them this time, but what if they come back a year later?" Lu Shi pondered for a while and smiled. "What's so difficult about that? Isn't our maternal grandmother's birthday celebration in May? After the new year, the weather will warm up. Why don't you stay at maternal grandmother's house for a while? They can't possibly go there to fetch you, right? There are still 2 unmarried cousins at maternal grandmother's house. You won't be bored." Zhou Jingyi clapped her hands happily. "Sister-in-law, you're so smart. I'll go after the new year." The 2 looked at each other and smiled. Nanny Lin carefully kept Zhou Jingyi's letter and hurriedly left with the return gift prepared by the Zhou family. Second old mistress sure flew into a rage when she saw that Zhou Jingyi did not bring her back. When Mrs. Lin saw that she was angry, she didn't dare to provoke her. After Mrs. Lin finished venting her anger, she hurriedly took the opportunity to present the letter and rushed to tell her what she saw in the Zhou family. Of course, the part about Madame Zhou's fierce words was skipped. At this time, saying this was tantamount to adding fuel to the fire, and the one who would be scolded would only be herself. Instead, he exaggerated how polite and friendly the Zhou family was, and how serious Zhou Jingyi's illness was, to the point that she could not get out of bed. Second old mistress sure was skeptical, but after hearing Nanny Lin's vow and receiving a reply, she gave up and sneered. "You better remember this. After the new year, you can go there again. You must bring her back for me. You can't be sick every time, right?" Nanny Lin quickly agreed with a smile, but she was secretly complaining in her heart. She made up her mind that if second old mistress sure did not remember to bring up this matter again, she would never bring it up again. With Madame Zhou's temper, talking to her really made her lose all face. She didn't want to go there again. While the second household was in a state of panic, the first household was not having a good time either. Early in the morning, third old mistress sure woke up and was about to head over to Wang Shi's place to talk. Who knew that the door was slippery and there was no carpet? She accidentally slipped and fell down the stairs with a shriek. She subconsciously pulled her maidservant, Ying Fang, who was supporting her, and both of them fell down together. Fortunately, third old mistress sure only had a scratch on her wrist, but Ying Fang was not so lucky. Her left thigh was fractured, and there was a bruise on her right elbow. Nanny Gui and the rest quickly went forward to help third old mistress sure up and scolded loudly. "What are you servants doing? You know that the weather is cold and the road is slippery, so why didn't you put a carpet on? If third old mistress gets hurt, can you bear the consequences?" The few maidservants who were cleaning at the side looked at each other, but none of them made a sound. Nanny Gui was third old mistress sure's trusted aide, and was used to giving orders. Seeing that the maidservants were still standing there in a daze, and did not know how to kneel down and beg for forgiveness, Nanny Gui became even angrier. She pointed at them and scolded. "What are you all standing there for? Hurry up and kneel down and beg for forgiveness." How would the maidservants be willing to listen to the orders of a mother who popped out of nowhere? The 3 of them looked at each other and did not move. One of them was kind-hearted and replied, "Mother, you misunderstood. That is not under us sisters, so we don't know." "Don't know?" Seeing that they still dared to talk back, Nanny Gui became even angrier and said sternly, "Then why are you all still standing there when you saw your mistress fall? Why don't you all know how to go forward and help her up? Where are the rules you all learned? Have they been eaten by dogs?" The 3 maidservants were also annoyed and one of them said, "We are sweeping the floor and can't leave. Besides, Aren't you here, mother? That's right. Besides, we are dirty. How can we help our mistress up? Nanny Gui pointed at Ingfang angrily and said, Then what about her? Can't you all help her up? Enough, stop talking. Third old mistress sure stopped Nanny Gui with a cold face. She was also furious. They were just a few low-level maidservants who swept the floor, yet they dared to talk back to the people around her in front of her. Wasn't this a slap to her face? But if they did, it would be a slap for nothing. Who asked her to be in a position where she was neither the master nor the guest. It was really inconvenient for her to put on the airs of a master and say anything. Otherwise she would seem petty. In the end, it was the two maidservants that third old mistress sure brought back who helped Ingfang back. Third old mistress sure also returned to her room and was too lazy to go out. She ordered Nanny Gui to get some ointment from Wang's place and get a physician for Ingfang. Nanny Gui couldn't wait to hear this and ran over to Wang Shi's side. She couldn't help but add fuel to the fire and complain to Wang Shi. Wang was also shocked when she heard it. She quickly ordered Nanny Jiang to get someone to get a physician while she went to third old mistress Shi's place. Third old mistress Shi and her husband had just returned and something like this happened. The household was under the control of the first branch, so she naturally had to give them an explanation. Third old mistress Shi did not expect Wang to come personally, and felt a little apologetic. She quickly stood up and greeted her with a smile, saying it's a small matter, and it's fine. But when Wang saw third old mistress Shi's scratched palm, and Ingfang's pitiful state, how could she maintain her face? She waited for the physician to arrive, and only left after third old mistress Shi and Ingfang were diagnosed and treated. The first thing Wang said when she left the guest room was, Get Wan Yang here. The young maidservant ran to Ning Garden to pass the message. Of course, she divulged some information to Sangwan. Sangwan's expression changed when she heard it. She quickly asked Mama Li to visit third old mistress Shi personally, and told her to wait for a while before going over to apologize. She also ordered Xingji to find out what exactly happened. Shi Fengjiu originally wanted to accompany Sangwan to visit Wang's place, but Sangwan did not dare to ask him to go with her. She was afraid that her mother-in-law would be even angrier if she saw it, so she insisted on not going with him. Shi Fengjiu saw her insistence and let it go. He smiled and comforted her. It's just an accident, don't take it to heart. Mother won't blame you, don't worry. I hope so. Sangwan forced a smile, but she did not agree with him in her heart. Sure enough, Wang saw her face turn so dark that ink was about to drip out. She sighed, Wan Yang, I see that you are a careful and meticulous person, so I was happy to slack off and let you take care of this household. It's not your first day at work, so how could something like this happen? Do you know that your third aunt's hand is bleeding, and the servant beside her has a broken thigh? The physician said that she has to rest for half a month. Wan Yang, if the one injured was your third aunt, where am I supposed to put my face? This morning Nanny Gui almost asked me about it in front of my face. I'm so ashamed. It's daughter-in-law's negligence, please punish me. Sangwan knelt down and lowered her head without saying a word. How could she explain such a thing? Could she push the blame to the servants? If the servants were at fault, then she, as the one in charge of the servants, was even more at fault. Either way, she would not be able to escape punishment. Wang said. What's the use of punishing you? I don't understand. Why did something like this happen out of the blue? Is it because your temper is too good that your servants are all lazy? Or is it because you didn't give them clear instructions? Sangwan's heart trembled, but she did not dare to make a sound. Not giving clear instructions was undoubtedly her responsibility. Her servants were lazy, so naturally she did not discipline them well enough. In short, it was all her fault, so there was no difference. It's daughter-in-law's negligence. I'm sorry, mother. Later, daughter-in-law will personally apologize to third aunt and give her an explanation. Sangwan said with her head lowered. Wang's face darkened and she did not speak. Her expression kept changing, and no one knew what she was thinking. Nanny Jiang, Xiao Chun, Xiao Li, and the others stood at the side, not daring to make a sound. Mother. At this time, Shi Fengjiu leisurely walked in from outside. Sangwan glanced at him from the corner of her eyes, and her heart unconsciously relaxed. Why are you here too? Wang saw her son, and her expression eased a lot. She asked him to sit down. I'm here to see mother. Shifengju sat down and smiled. Fortunately, third aunt is fine. Mother, don't be angry. Wang sighed. It's not a matter of whether I'm angry or not. Your third uncle and third aunt haven't come back for so many years, and something like this happened as soon as they came back. Those who don't know will think that I'm deliberately being mean and making things difficult for them. Even if they don't think so, they still have to say that housekeeping is bad. Does it sound good to others? There were a lot of things happening yesterday, so Wanyang can't tell you everything. You can't blame her. Fortunately, third aunt is fine today, so it was a false alarm. Let's be careful next time, and not let something like this happen again. Mother, quickly let Wanyang go to third aunt's place to take a look. I think third aunt is not an unreasonable person. Shifengju smiled and advised. Wang stared at him for a long time, then snorted and said, Your eldest sister always says that you're protecting your wife. I think it's true. What are you talking about again? Shifengju smiled and said, Is it useful to scold Wanyang now? Besides, Wanyang is my wife. It's not a big deal for me to speak a few words for her, right? Mother, do you want us to be at odds with each other? Chapter 159. What nonsense are you spouting? Wang laughed at his words and said to Sangwon, Forget it, forget it. You can leave now. Apologize to your third aunt properly. Also, give her an explanation for this matter. Teach those 3 maidservants who were watching by the side a good lesson. This kind of servant who doesn't respect their master must not be tolerated. Yes, mother. Sangwon hurriedly agreed. She heaved a sigh of relief and quickly left. Not long after leaving the main courtyard, she saw Mammy Lee and 2 maidservants waiting in the corridor to shelter from the wind. When they saw her, they hurried over. The 2 maidservants each held a gift box in their hands. Sangwon asked and found out that it was Shifengju who ordered them to wait here. He was waiting for her to go to third old mistress Shi's place together. Sangwon felt warmth in her heart, and a myriad of emotions welled up in her heart. Young mistress, let's go over now. Mama Lee glanced at Sangwon and said. Seeing that Sangwon's expression was normal, Mama Lee secretly heaved a sigh of relief. It was natural for a daughter-in-law to be reprimanded by her mother-in-law when she made a mistake. Mama Lee did not feel that Sangwon did not deserve to be reprimanded. If she felt wronged because of this, then she would look down on her. Sangwon nodded and asked as she walked, What gifts did you bring? Mama Lee followed closely behind her and answered with a smile. One box has 2 cans of premium tea leaves, and the other box has 20 exquisite pouches filled with gold and silver coins for third old mistress to reward. Sangwon nodded and did not say anything. She sighed in her heart. The servants were indeed influential. If third old mistress Shi had given out rewards, those maidservants would not just stand there and watch. It was just that third old mistress Shi would not be able to recall which of the servants liked to get involved in trouble. When third old mistress Shi saw Sangwon, she smiled and nodded. Oh, Wanyang is here. Have a seat. Nanny Gui, make some tea. His tone was indifferent, and he sat there without moving. It was obvious that he was angry. I'm here to see third aunt. Sangwon stepped forward and curtsied. She motioned for Mama Lee and the others to come forward and curtsy as well. She put down the gifts and smiled apologetically. It's all my fault for not taking care of you properly. I've let third aunt suffer. Third aunt, please forgive me this time for the sake of my young age and naivety. I'll apologize to third aunt. At this moment, Nanny Gui served tea and couldn't help but say, It's fortunate that our madam didn't suffer any serious injuries this time. If there's a next time, it's hard to say. Sangwon said, There won't be a next time. Please rest assured, third aunt and mother. No matter how insensible Wanyang is, she won't dare to make the same mistake again. Third old mistress Shi quickly stopped Nanny Gui and smiled at Sangwon. I'll let it go this time. I'm not so petty as to not let it go. Speaking of which, it's not easy for you either. We came back so suddenly yesterday, and you've been in charge of so many things. It's inevitable that there would be one or two omissions. The servants are used to stepping on the high and worshipping the low, so it's not entirely your fault. Don't say that anymore, quickly sit down. Third old mistress sure saw that Sangwon had taken all the blame on herself, and didn't try to evade the blame by saying things like, "The servants are insensible and don't know the rules." The anger in her heart dissipated, and she couldn't help but empathize with her. If Sangwon continued to evade the blame, she would only be angrier. She was, after all, the wife of an official. She was familiar with all sorts of excuses in social situations, and she hated it the most. If Sangwon wanted to play any tricks, she wouldn't be able to hide it from her. However, even if she forgave Sangwon, it didn't mean that the matter was over. Otherwise, why would the servants still regard her as their master? Not only her, even the servants from the third branch would be looked down upon. Yet her husband had resigned from his position. No matter what the real reason was, in the eyes of the servants, a resignation was a resignation. It had the same meaning as losing one's position, which meant that he had lost his power and power. In the eyes of the servants, he was worthless. If she had a good temper, how would she survive for the next 1 or 2 years? Sangwon also understood the meaning behind her words. She couldn't help but feel a chill in her heart. Including her mother-in-law, none of the 3 sisters-in-law could compare to Third Aunt. Third Aunt's words were really a hidden dagger. Sangwon said seriously, "Third Aunt, don't worry. Wan Yang will definitely give Third Aunt an explanation for this matter." Logically speaking, the servants in the household should have been disciplined a long time ago. But now that Mother finally had a few days of peace, Wan Yang couldn't bear to bother her with these trivial matters. But Wan Yang was still young, and had only been in the household for a short period of time. There were some things that were inconvenient for her to do, so she could only turn a blind eye to them. Who knew that they would become even more arrogant and despotic after being spoiled? They no longer had any respect for their master. Mother even asked me just now, saying that I was foolish and shouldn't have let them do as they pleased. Otherwise, today's matter wouldn't have happened. This time, I must punish them severely according to the rules. Giving Third Aunt an explanation is also a good thing to clean up the unhealthy practices in the household. Third old mistress sure couldn't help but feel relieved after hearing those words. She couldn't help but smile. No wonder your mother-in-law and Fengju dote on you so much. That mouth of yours is really obedient. Quickly sit down, you don't have to be so courteous in front of Third Aunt. Third old mistress Sher and Nanny Gui thought that those wretched servants didn't seem to be targeting them on purpose. Instead, it was because they were used to lazing around in the household, which made them feel much better. At least, they didn't fly into a rage out of humiliation like before. Sangwon agreed with a smile and sat down. She received the tea that Nanny Gui served. Sangwon's gaze swept across the room and she smiled apologetically. Third Aunt, Third Uncle, and my 2 younger sisters, it's really hard on all of you to stay here. The house has already been cleaned up yesterday, and the curtains and window paper will be changed today. Tomorrow and the day after, the furniture can be arranged properly. Third Aunt and Third Uncle, please bear with it for a few more days. We'll be able to move in very soon. This matter was what Third Old Mistress Sher was most concerned about at the moment. Hearing Sangwon say so, she felt relieved and said happily, "That's great. We've really troubled you. We're not particular about it. If there's a need for small things in the future, we'll look for you to add them. Right now, we just want to move in quickly. Anything that's more or less similar will do." Yes, Nanny Gui quickly added. "I won't hide it from young mistress. It's really inconvenient to stay here. It's better to have our own courtyard. As long as there's a bed and blankets, we can slowly add the other things in the future." Sangwon did not expect them to be so anxious and could only agree with a smile. She thought to herself that it would be more difficult for everyone to get this matter done quickly. Nanny Gui was not satisfied with her answer and quickly said with a smile, "Young mistress, how about this? We'll change the curtains and window paper today and arrange the furniture tomorrow. Tomorrow is a good day, so we'll move in tomorrow night. What do you think?" So anxious? Sangwon was stunned and could not help but glance at Third Old Mistress Sher. Seeing her lowering her head to drink her tea without saying a word, She knew that this was also her intention. Thinking about what happened today, third old mistress sure must have been annoyed. This was also her way of giving her a hard time to warn her that she was not a pushover. Sangwon sighed at her bad luck. She could only speed up the work and try to move the larger pieces of furniture in by the afternoon. She could only hope that they would be able to make it in time tomorrow. There were so many houses, big and small. Furthermore, it was not just Jichui Tower, there was also Han Shuang Pavilion. Even though third aunt and Nanny Gui said that it would be fine as long as there's a bed and blankets, Sangwon would be too naive if she took their words seriously. Not only must the furniture be arranged properly, the decorations must not be lacking as well. All right. Sangwon looked troubled. After thinking for a while, she forced a smile and nodded her head. I'll try my best to arrange it. If it's not possible, I hope that third aunt can understand. She couldn't agree to it too easily. Otherwise, third aunt and Nanny Gui would think that this matter was easy. It was a small matter if they didn't accept her favor, but if there was a slight mistake and they blamed her, she would really be wronged. With your words, I can rest assured. Third old mistress sure was also a smart person. Even though Sangwon left a way out, she had already agreed. If you do your best, third aunt will naturally understand. Why would I blame you? Third old mistress sure smiled and sighed. Third aunt doesn't mean to make things difficult for you, but it's really inconvenient to live here. Just clean up the house. There's really no need to be too particular. Sangwon hurriedly smiled and agreed. She then asked if third aunt had any other requests. Third old mistress sure naturally said no and sent her out. This young mistress is really something. How rare. Nanny Gui watched as Sangwon and her entourage left and could not help but whisper to third old mistress sure. Third old mistress sure sighed deeply and said with envy, sister-in-law is really blessed. Third old mistress sure was not someone who believed in fortune, but there were times when she felt that she had to believe in it. Take Wang for example. She was illiterate, not scheming, not smart, and did not think before she spoke. Yet, the fortune teller said that she would bring good fortune to her husband. After she married into the Sure family, the Sure family's business did indeed improve by leaps and bounds. Her parents-in-law and husband all liked her. In her life, her parents-in-law treated her well, her husband treated her well, and she had a capable and filial son. She even had such a good daughter-in-law. The only thing she wanted to do in her life was to enjoy life. Unlike her, even when she was the wife of the most glamorous official, she had to entertain and socialize. She had to worry about it every day. Back at Ninggarden, Sangwon ordered Mama Li and Xingji, one in charge of Jichui Tower and the other in charge of Han Shuang Pavilion, to send more people to speed up the tidying process. She also ordered Luya to take the storeroom key and bring people to move the large pieces of furniture out of the storeroom to dry before moving them back into the house in the afternoon. Sangwon gritted her teeth and told them to tell everyone. Everyone will be rewarded after 2 days of hard work. Anyone who slacks off will be punished severely. After Mama Li and Xingji went to work, there were a few other housekeepers who came to take the tiles and things. Sangwon hurriedly dealt with them before calling Hongyi over to ask, "Did you find out what happened in the guest room this morning? What exactly happened?" You're tuning in to the Earbook Haven YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.